Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Welcome back, Mavericks and new viewers from all around the globe. Great to have you here tonight. Another special broadcast for you, following up after last night's barn burner of a show with Canadian freedom asylum seeker James Bauder, who is seeking political asylum in the United States through President Trump. Well, following up tonight with one of the people that phoned in during the call-in portion and didn't really get to say as much as I think she might like to have said. So Brigitte Belton, mother of the Freedom Convoy, will join us tonight for a special, I'm going to say exclusive interview, just to make it sound more dramatic. And Mark Carney went to Calgary today to the Calgary Stampede, and not unexpectedly, he got a mixed reaction from people. So let's dig into this, shall we? We've got a really important show tonight to share with you, and I know that you're going to be glued to your seats. Is that the right way to say it? Glued to, well, I used to work at a Speedway, and we used to say, we'll sell you the whole seat, but you'll only need the edge. Stay with me. We'll be right back.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, defending free speech, Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Let's bring her in right off the top. Let's get into it. Here she is, Brigitte Belton. Welcome back.
Hi, Rick. Thank you.
Thanks for coming back to join us tonight. I think we're going to have another important conversation, especially in the aftermath of last night's big show with James Bauder.
It was very interesting. And as always, thank you so much for having me.
Our privilege. And I thank you to James, actually, for coming on the show and answering some questions, even though I did catch him in some lies last night, which I found very disappointing, as did some of the other viewers. We're going to dig into some of that tonight, because today, Brigitte, I had a lot of people calling me saying, Rick, you have to do a follow-up on the James Bauder program from last night to just kind of review and highlight some of the most important information. And I thought, well, I don't want to just do that. I don't want to just sit here and editorialize. You called into the program last night. You had questions for James. You have, I have to say, in all the time that I've dealt with you since the Freedom Convoy, I can say I've never encountered you ever telling me anything untruthful or lying to me. That has always stood out with me. Last night was another story. When you called in, you got to ask James like a question, but he didn't really want to talk to you. I wanted to make, so I reached out to you today and I said, why don't you come back on the program and we'll give you a voice, give you time on here as well to respond to what you heard last night. I think it's important.
Well, I mean, the very first thing I wanted to do was to see if he was credible at all last night. And I mean, today I've gone through some of your footage from last night, and I've made a few videos. And he mentions my TikTok. Yes, they're there. Where I caught him in a few things. I mean, the first thing was, we should all be friends and love and unity, and we started this together, and blah blah blah. And so I gave him the opportunity last night to be a man of his word. And within 5 seconds, he blew it. It wasn't even well, maybe we should talk at another time, or, this isn't the right venue, Brigitte. It was, oh, so do you want to have a discussion? Do you want to apologize to me for the things you've said about me that aren't true? And he's like, no. It was just flat out, no. It wasn't, we can talk about this offline. We should open a line of communication, but this is probably not the right venue. I would have agreed with him on that. And I would have said, okay, James, let's open the lines of communication and see if we can solve our issue. Not that we would ever be friends again because of how I feel, what he did and what he said he did last night on your show regarding Convoy. It's turned a lot of speculation into fact and reality, and it came from him. It didn't come from rumors. It didn't come from anywhere else. Yep. So, and I mean, he says, I'm just a hardworking trucker. Well, but then he's in the US and he can't work. So is he a hardworking trucker or isn't he? Mm-hmm. Now, what he doesn't know is I was in Texas, and an ex-Marine, not ex, she always reminds me, she is not ex, she is retired Marine. And I had a great conversation about how asylum seekers and illegals work down there. And they basically work on farms, and they drive within the farm or just down the road. Did we find the farm? No, we didn't. But her and I talked at great length about what goes on down there. And her thought as a Marine was basically, this is not a guy I want in the US. This is a guy that won't stand up when the chips are down. Mm-hmm. And he ran from Canada. And I do have to give Pat and Chris and Tamara, and I know people know that we are fractured, but I have to give them full credit. They've stayed there. They've gone through the process. I'm sure it's not pleasant, but they've made a lot of money doing it, so I don't know. But I give them full credit for standing there and going through the process. They get full credit for that.
And just to bring people up to speed, in case you didn't see last night's program, or maybe you don't know what the heck we're talking about here, James Bauder. Yeah, it's my fault. Just to make sure everybody is on the same page here and you understand, James Bauder was with Canada Unity, a political activist group. He claims to have been the guy who started the Freedom Convoy, which of course became probably the largest protest in Canadian history on Parliament Hill, which I think just about everybody knows what that was. And he's facing about five different charges. He says that he could go to jail for up to, he said 15 years. I've heard 14. Those are maximums.
Right.
From what I have been able to, as I look at the legal precedents, the reality is, if he were to stay in Canada and go through the process, he would probably be sentenced to months in jail, or maybe even just house arrest at the end of the whole exercise, based on the way that all of these cases have been going. And now he's seeking political asylum in the United States through Donald Trump, and he has pretty powerful political people from the MAGA organization around him. People like Kyle Kemper. He claims RFK Jr., and he claims he has a meeting coming up with Donald Trump, Todd Callender, who is a very wealthy man who owns the Cloud Hub social media platform, among others. And it looks like they're providing legal assistance to him down there and guidance as he tries to claim political asylum, saying that Canada is a tyrannical country that is no longer safe and is persecuting him. So that's where we're at tonight. And then I'll throw it back to you, Bridget. What are your other initial, I guess, observations and thoughts after last night's interview with James Bauder?
Well, the first thing I I have to laugh. You are so good at what you do. I mean, Rick, I give you full 100% pat on the back. I mean, if he was going to get caught in something, it's with you. You know, the mercenaries and the Ukraine soldiers and I was just like, oh my gosh. And he was like, oh yes, 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 yes. And then all of a sudden, oh no, you're probably right, Rick. And
in fact,
James,
as you mentioned that, I actually have that portion of the interview queued up because I wanted to review that anyway. So let's just rerun a little bit of that because, as much as I know James is upset with me tonight, but none of this came from me. This all comes from him. All I did was invite him on the program. Well, actually, I didn't. He called me. He called me to come on the program. And I said, okay, come on the program, because he wants to make people aware and obviously get people to donate to his legal fund. And this is just him talking. This isn't me. This is James Bauder. This is his story, his words, not me.
Before I can be extradited. So it's a pretty complex.
Oh, hang on a second. Let me get the right.
That's on 10 times speed there.
Yeah, the deep-throated, low-voiced chipmunk.
Legal battle still ahead of me. However, this is a game changer if President Trump gets involved, which so far we're confident that we can't speak for the man. However, the amount of pressure that will start to apply towards him as this story gains. I've got some big interviews with folks in the States here where, we'll be talking to millions versus, smaller audiences in Canada that are all shadow banned and censored and everything else. So I do have some professional teams that are coming in that are going to be putting me on a media circuit that will get this story out to hundreds of millions.
I'm going to stop that for a second. That I found very interesting. Professional media teams. So this
is exactly what Chris and Tamara did. Okay. They had a group with their lawyers, a clandestine group to control media, to control the outcome, to control the narrative, and they had people like Andrew Lawton in there, who's now an MP, right? Yeah. They were on Tucker Carlson. They were on Jordan Peterson. I mean, if you look at that, it's all a connection with the West, from the West, right? Those Westies with the lawyer, Keith Wilson and Eva, right?
Yeah, from the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms.
Yeah, they have connections all through Rebel News with Ezra Levant. Yeah. So, I mean, Ezra, we know, is close friends to Raminsky. He was in Iowa with him, and he was running. He was going to be a running mate for Trump. Yeah. So, are they all connected and close somehow? Sure. Is that possibly why the people that have those connections are on trial? Possibly. I mean, it's looking better and better every day. And the other thing that James had said was, all those that went on trial were convicted and went to jail. Well, there is somebody who worked with me who isn't. And that's Harold Yonker. So Harold Yonker didn't go to jail. He was relieved of his charges. Joe Walsh, she's also didn't go to jail. I can't remember what the outcome was for Clayton, but I'm thinking he was let go and free too, maybe paid a fine. I doubt it, but I think he was also not convicted. So not everyone, he says everyone was convicted. They were not.
Yeah. So let's just let this continue to roll. I just find it interesting that, he's claiming political persecution, which is why he's seeking asylum. But as I look at this, it is political for him. And this is a political exercise. As we roll through this, you'll begin to understand why his case is precedent setting, why it's so important, and why it's actually threatening the sovereignty of Canada, a country that James says he's there to protect, when in reality, his actions may actually end up ripping the country apart.
Millions. And so far, the public court, for those that have been following, they realize the severity of everything. And they're trying to look at this from how can this actually help all of the convoy participants, is that we're going to be lobbying President Trump to intervene. And what better man to talk about persecution and lawfare and so on and so forth than Trump? But he's also made a commitment to stand beside and behind and in front of all the truckers till the very end. Well, the very end is not over for us. So,
and it is interesting as well. I'll just pause very briefly. Trump has taken a real interest in the Freedom Convoy and now, of course, we have this extension of his comments calling for Canada to become the 51st state.
So we do need his
now.
help.
Just wait a
He's
second.
in a position where he can actually help.
Yeah.
Yvette Harrington. I was in contact with her after the convoy.
Who's Yvette Harrington?
She was New Mexico's representative. I don't believe right. And she's the one that called for Canadians to be able to go to the US like the Americans had done during the Vietnam War.
Right.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing. Nancy Pelosi would not Pelosi would not allow her bill to even hit the floor. So I was front and center talking with Miss Harrington. Okay. So I knew what that was a long time ago. So if at any point we wanted to file an I-589, we couldn't have. We didn't have the ability to. Now, I'm not sure how Chris states that, like Chris Barber had stated that he was offered asylum. I'm not sure who offered that, and I'm not aware of those details or if it's just an exaggeration of the situation. But we also know that Trump sent his second in command, a guy by the name of Alex, who is a Russian nationalist at one point. He's a Canadian citizen now, I believe, but he was in charge of the Trump Towers in Toronto. And we know that from that book. She talks about it right there.
Just hold it up a little higher because we couldn't see the cover. Okay, Tamara Litch's book, Hold the Line.
Yeah, she talks about how Trump had sent a Russian Toronto businessman to go pick her up and take her anywhere she wanted to go when she was released from jail.
Wow. Okay, let's continue.
Help. From a geopolitical point of view.
Oh, and actually, James said that he was trying to decide if he should seek political asylum in either the United States or Russia. Just an important point. Yes.
Right. But Russia was too cold.
Back and forth, and the two attorney generals, which would be Pam Bondi and the Canadian Attorney General, and looking at the evidence of all the persecuted, all the lawfare, all the political prosecutions, not just mine, and saying, when are you going to pardon everybody? When are you going to stop this? Because you're committing crimes against Canadians. And I have the proof. It's not opinions here. Okay, I'm dealing with proof. Hard factual evidence.
So you want the President of the United States and the Trump administration to become directly involved in the Canadian legal process as it relates to the Freedom Convoy protesters who have been charged. You want the U.S. government to intervene in the Canadian legal process.
Well, they can't intervene. Okay.
And just a matter of just an important point. Even the Prime Minister of Canada is not supposed to intervene in legal matters. They're supposed to be hands off. The premiers, the politicians are supposed to be hands off. They are not supposed to get involved and influence legal proceedings at all. So this is absolutely a call for foreign interference.
Okay.
You want them to
that's something they can't do, but they can speak about it and they can apply pressure. Especially with the geopolitical state right now between USA and Canada. This is just going to give President Trump more ammunition, if any, to point out that Canada is not a safe country.
Yeah,
and here's all this evidence.
So not a safe country, and that is the key to the whole thing, which we
and that's totally wrong. I can go out at night, I can walk my street, and I don't have to worry about being attacked. Now, granted, I don't live in the GTA. I don't live there for a reason, right? Go and walk Ottawa at night. You're not afraid. I lived in Ottawa, the Ottawa region, for 30 years. Yeah. That city rolls up at 6 o'clock. It's done.
And if he's talking about being politically unsafe because he's being politically persecuted, he says he's in exile. The truth is he's in self-exile. The government of Canada did not exile him. Like, we have Choosy, who watches this program sometimes, and he calls on everyone to exile the Knights of Malta. So I have T-shirts that say "Exile the Knights of Malta," right? But as serious as you want to take that, but James Bauder has not been exiled. He's in self-exile. He has chosen to leave the country. He can still come back if he wants to. That's not being in exile, just to make an important legal point. So
right.
Now, will he face additional charges if he is returned to Canada and doesn't come back on his own?
Yes,
that is a question that
he's making it all worse for himself, because if he misses court date, now he's in contempt of court. There are other charges that will mount up against him. And then, of course, he'll just become an even bigger martyr for some people. But this is all self-inflicted harm at this point.
Right.
So, yeah.
Here's all this evidence.
This is really why I think your case is potentially precedent setting, because I don't think there has been a case since 1867 where a Canadian has been granted political asylum in the United States. And that's because the two governments largely have viewed each other as being liberal democracies where the rule of law is enforced and applied. And so each country viewed the other as a safe, free society where even refugees fleeing persecution could find refuge and sanctuary.
Correct.
And so now, if your case is successful and your application for asylum is granted, this changes everything. Because now that would then be an acknowledgement or even an accusation on the U.S. government's part. They would then be viewing Canada as a country that is no longer safe, that it is a country that is authoritarian, tyrannical, not safe, not a democracy, not a free country, and potentially even a threat to the national security of the United States. Is that fair?
I think if I could quote all the lawyers that I've been talking to, they've all said just about exactly what you just said. So well done, Rick, on that analogy, because it's coming from folks that have pretty high law degrees and in multiple years of experience, and they're saying the same thing.
Well,
so,
I certainly see why
you nailed it.
Yeah. And that's really ultimately where this could lead and what it ultimately will be all about. It's not just about James Bauder. This is really putting Canada on trial.
Correct. And you can.
Correct.
Yes, he knows what he's doing.
Yes. So this is what Noam Chomsky would say is manufacturing consent. This gives those who want to annex Canada. This gives Trump and those around him who want to make Canada the 51st state the ammunition, the excuse that they are looking for, that one of the excuses that they will predicate an annexation or even an invasion of Canada on. That's what this is all about. And he knows
it absolutely is. And if you look at all the other leaders that are on trial, here's the one thing that they all have in common. Okay, they've all been part of the separatist movement. You now have Tamara Lich running around for, Keith Wilson with Chris Barber in all these separatists. Let's become the 51st state. You couldn't make this up if you wanted to. They're putting it right out there. They were separatists, even though Tamara said on the POEC testimony that she loved Canada and she was learning French and that she thought it was just so wonderful that she had French Canadians and Western Canadians talking on the same very screen. And she wants the country whole. But then she's at 51st state events promoting the destruction of our country. I mean, they're all, every one of them that have faced, without Pat, I haven't seen do this, so I'd like to exclude Pat from that. But Chris, Tamara, and James are all in that same realm.
I can pause on that. Pat King, you're talking about?
Yes.
I know that he is in favor of Alberta separatism, but I think he wants Alberta independence, but not necessarily to make it part of the United States, from what I've heard him say on some of his live streams. Not that I watch him that much, but I have heard him say those sorts of things. So I think that's where he is at.
Well, I'm very careful on that because I haven't seen it. I haven't heard it.
Sure.
People have told me that, but again, I haven't seen it from Pat, so I'm going to exclude him from that group.
Sure. Okay.
But we also know that Glenn Carrott is now a fabric piece. Glenn Carrott knew Tamara. She says so in her book, and introduced
and to
her.
Understand who's Glenn Carrott.
I believe he's former mayor of Enniskillen out west.
And he was the key organizer for the 2019 United We Roll convoy. So this is a couple of years before the Freedom Convoy. And that was all about oil and gas. Big oil money fueling that whole convoy, which all ties into, of course, separatism, some U.S. interests potentially, oil money. It's all about the oil. It's all about the cash. And that's where all the separatist sentiment comes from. This is about applying pressure on the federal government, pipelines, all of these different things, pressure being applied for various reasons. But this is about the oil industry, big money, U.S. oil interests. This is why it gets so complicated and so heated. And it shows that this goes back well beyond the Freedom Convoy, well before that, to 2019. Glenn Carrott was there with that first convoy, which turned out to be something of a trial run in many respects for the Freedom Convoy, for at least some of these people, the separatist movement. And who was there with them? James Bauder.
And Tamara Lich.
Yes.
She was involved as well.
Right. So
yeah,
you're starting to, everybody connecting the dots here now. We're starting to get the picture. I hope so, because the country's at stake, folks. That's what's on the line.
And I wish I had all these dots when I was doing convoy, but I didn't. And I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. I had many people come to me and go, James Bauder's awful, and so is Pat King, and you don't want to get involved with these people. And I'm like, I'm not really. We're just kind of headed in the same direction. I had no idea that they were underhanded, that they would do the things they've done. And I mean, they literally have a group that goes around and attacks their opposition for them. There is a group of people, there's a list, and these influencers are there solely to attack you if you try and put out the truth and destroy the narrative. It's horrible.
Kind of like what happens here sometimes when I talk about things people don't like me talking about.
That's right.
You know, some of those folks were present last night. I'm pretty sure, and at least a couple of the platforms. So yeah, you know, it's just this was all hidden, really, during the Freedom Convoy. These, what they were doing was hidden. It people were told, believed that this was just some organic thing. It was a response to the pandemic and the government response and the vaccine mandates and the mask mandates and those issues. That is what the vast majority of people came out to protest. But what they weren't aware of was that at the center of this, there was this disruptive group of separatists, which we've talked about before, and we're showcasing here again now, bringing to the surface, exposing this, or not. I'm not even exposing it. They've exposed themselves. James exposed themselves again. His words, his story, and he's showing that this is actually being fueled by U.S. influence.
Generals were advising James,
yes,
on what to do. Well, no wonder half the stuff that was supposed to happen never did. You know, and then James brings in Tom Marazzo, and he sits on the desk and he goes, "This is Tom Marazzo, amazing guy, blah, blah, blah. He's here to work with us." And James walks off and does Fifth Estate interviews or whatever interview that was with Pat. And then he goes off and he does everything. And then when he comes back, he's like, "Well, how come I'm not leader?" Because you took off and took care of yourself. So now the arc has got itself. We're good. See ya. You know, I mean, and then he complained that Tamara had taken over. I'm like, what do you want me to do? She's done the same thing to me. She threatened me with millions of dollars in legal issues if I didn't shut up. If I did another interview that she didn't like. Well, you know, she got what she wanted. She wanted the spotlight, and with that came some legal issues. I hope she's happy.
Yeah. So James last night said that he had been in contact with, well, we know that he met with Major General Paul Vallely, who I became aware of actually not even that long ago. Major Vallely was on the program. I had an interview with him, and I became aware that he was actually advising and directing the convoy, at least this core group of people that Bauder was involved with, from his home base in Montana, calling in and constant contact, and then advising former president at the time, Donald Trump, of what was going on at the convoy and giving them advice. This is a U.S. general, major general. Now he's sort of retired, semi-retired, but he still has an arms company. He still, I think, does some consulting work, and he does advise President Trump. He has a direct line to President Trump. And at the time, of course, it's pretty clear that Trump was running sort of a shadow government of sorts, because, of course, he was upset, saying that the election had been stolen. And so that's what was going on. And he had these advisors and these military guys and all these generals who really are opposed to socialism, liberalism. They're very ultra conservative. Some would say far right in their political ideology, if you want to characterize it that way, whatever. But Major Vallely also appears on this program called the Sovereign Soul Show. And he makes regular appearances on there. I took note of it. And one of the other main guys on there is this Norman Traversy, who's sort of the common law guru, pseudo legal guy who causes a lot of problems for the Canadian government with a lot of legal, I would call him almost like a court jester, causing problems, legal issues. But they're getting traction, and he's working with Major Vallely and James Bauder. He's got connections to Bauder and Vallely. So here's a clip just to show what I'm talking about, how Major Vallely really inappropriately applying what I would say is foreign interference, which is a no-no, and it's a disgrace actually to the uniform and to the U.S. military and the U.S. government for a major general to be doing something like this.
I and some other people in Ottawa were the reception committee. I live in Ottawa. I've got a friend who owns a boutique hotel, a 24-room hotel, and she booked rooms for only people that knew me. And we ran that convoy from this hotel in downtown Ottawa. A lot of the people helping were ex-military and ex-police.
That was the Major General in the top corner, and that was Norman Traversy who was speaking. This sort of legal pseudo common law guy, causing all
I
kinds
had
of
the
problems.
same issue you had with James last night when you played the video. I couldn't hear it, so I'll take your word on it.
Yeah. So what Norman Traversy says is that he had a friend at this hotel, and all the people that were around him were staying at that hotel, sort of their team. And what else did he say? He said that geez, I just ran the clip, and here, let me run it again.
I and some other people in Ottawa were the reception committee. I live in Ottawa. I've got a friend who owns a boutique hotel, a 24-room hotel, and she.
Okay, so that's just the setup, saying that they were running the convoy. And what he also says in this interview is that Major General Vallely has like a map up at his base in Montana, and that he was in constant communication, telling them where to direct the trucks, where to park them, what to do, giving them strategy during this. You have to understand, this is a political protest, right? And you have a U.S. general telling these people what to do.
Well, and it explains why when I repeatedly went to, what's his name, Stu, and said, we need more parking. This isn't going to be enough parking. We don't have parking for the trucks. We need to solve this. You know, why I was completely ignored, because we have generals in the background saying, oh, just park them on the streets, make a mess.
Yeah.
You know, if that's what they were saying.
Well, yeah,
I suspect.
Don't know, and I don't know exactly what the strategy was, but they're getting some direction. Now, I have to confess, it's not even a confession. It's just, I have to acknowledge that in the same interview, Vallely says that they didn't always listen to what he was telling them to do, right? Because they're a bunch of strong-minded, strong-willed truckers, right? But the point is,
well, who's the trucker? Because at the time, if you go back and look at the POEC testimony, James is very vague on his trucking experience. And recently, since the POEC, he posted, "This is my first time cross-border as a trucker." So was he cross-border at the time of Convoy? I don't know, but it's very confusing when you listen to James. But he also says he has a degree in corporate governance at the POEC. A lot of people missed that. They take James for an idiot, which I don't. I actually think he plays a stooge very well, but he is not. I don't think for 1 minute the man is an idiot. I think he plays it very well.
You know, here's Norm Traversy talking about the ties to President Trump.
And he was also an advisor to President Trump. So he's kind of
he's talking about Major Vallely.
And he was also an advisor to President Trump. So he's kind of our way to contact Trump. Oh. I got an email from Donald Trump in 2020 thanking me. So we've been in touch during the convoy. I was one of the organizers, and every evening I would phone General Vallely, and he had a map of Ottawa on his wall. He's in Montana, and he would then report to President Trump, and he would also give me assignments like, you know, go to Waverly Street and do this, or tell those guys not to do that, or whatever.
And they're smiling like, you shouldn't be doing that. That's not proper. That's a that's a diplomatic crisis right there. Okay, you don't know.
Now, do you remember what happened in, I believe it was New Mexico. I believe it was New Mexico. I used to drive down Texas, New Mexico, California all the time. And there are checkpoints where you drive in, and when you check into this, when you drive into this, and its cars go into this as well, you have no rights in there. You are with the soldiers, you're with the enforcement, and you have no rights. And there was a video that circled, probably way before Convoy anyway. And a guy drives in and he goes, I don't have to give you my ID. I'm a sovereign citizen. Mm-hmm. And they went, show us your ID. And they're like, nope, I'm a sovereign citizen. And in the States, they don't play like they do up here in Canada. That is one thing I've learned as a traveler and as a trucker. When I am told by law enforcement in the States to provide something, yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, sir, right? Like, you don't play. And the things that James, I've seen him do on video with Canadian police, he wouldn't have got away with. He would have been tasered in the US. So I'm not sure why he's running there. But they basically broke the guy's window, hauled him out the car, grabbed his wallet out, and went, great, you're a US citizen. See you later. Yeah. All that because he kept claiming he was a sovereign citizen and didn't need to comply. You do need to comply.
Yeah, and that's why I was asking James last night, why do you think you're going to find more freedom in the US? Why would you be any safer there? I see a lot of problems on the US side. I see problems on the Canadian side. So what is the big attraction down there? And then he went on about things like solitary confinement. And I wanted to address that tonight anyway, so I'm glad that you kind of brought that up. But listen to this clip.
Has taken place in Canada, and the result of all of those 4 harms have taken place to me personally. I'm the asylum applicant, but also harms have taken place to thousands of Canadians. Thousands. So this is where none of that would matter in Canada should I go and be tried in Canada, because why? Go back to the imbalance of the judicial scales. You know, they've got to be in the middle, 50-50. Right now, it's stacked to far left-leaning judges where they're playing lawfare games on everybody. So all of that evidence, and we're talking a mountain of it, binders and binders and binders of evidence, is sitting there with my lawyers. And then how it would proceed is that they would say, hey, USA, we want to extradite James. Well, then now they're going to be dealing with all of that credible evidence that's sitting there waiting, and how they've connected lawfare. Have to make explanation on how are you going to guarantee that this isn't going to happen in his safety? And prime example is that, okay, how many people have been incarcerated and put in solitary confinement? Do you have the answer on that, Rick? And
how many people have been arrested and placed in solitary?
You know, solitary confinement is an act of torture. Okay, it violates laws. We're not supposed to do that to our prisoners. You know, it's not allowed, especially for mischief charges. Absurd. Okay, so that all gets dealt with in a judicial system that's going to be fair, and they have to be able to prove to the U.S. government, which is protecting me.
Okay, so I didn't have the answer to that last night, but I looked it up.
There were 2. There's 2 Freedom Convoy people that were in solitary confinement, Pat King and Tamara Leach. Now, typically, those are by their own admissions. I wasn't there, so I can't tell you, but that's by their own admissions. Typically, solitary confinement is meant to protect the inmate against other inmates.
Right.
Or it's used to punish the inmate because they didn't toe the line.
Right.
And the other reason you use it is because the guy's a coward and doesn't want to be in population.
And without, yes, and without getting into too
and who
many
put him in solitary confinement? Nobody. He's never been in solitary confinement.
Right. Here's the other thing. I was looking, I was comparing Canada to the US, getting some stats. These are government stats. And I can tell you that from what I found today, in the United States, where he thinks he's getting more freedom, on any given day, they have about 80,000 prisoners in solitary confinement every single day of the year.
Do you know what their difference of their jail system is as well? Their jail system is run for profit.
Yes, that's true.
Okay.
Yep.
Whereas our jail system is not, although I personally would like to see that change, but they're just putting it out there. But theirs is run for profit. I've delivered, it's very, very interesting and intimidating at the same time to deliver to some of these, but I've delivered to Reno Correctional Facility. I've delivered to a few others, and they're meant for profit. Those guys don't sit there, play Xbox and, go to the games room or watch TV or smoke cigarettes. They're working and they're earning. And we don't have those jails. The Bluffs was closed a long time ago, and that was a farming community, so they can't go there. There's a lot of jails throughout Canada that are they're just, boxes holding them. Whereas had we had retraining, had I been elected, this is what I some of the things I would have liked to seen is privatization. Thank you. I can't say that word tonight. But benefiting the inmate by giving them a skill so that when they left, they had the tools to not reoffend. Sure. Right. So I think it was important to do partnerships. And would that mean turning over the jail system to kind of a privatized model? Maybe a little bit. And the US also pays about $130 less per day per inmate. So if you're looking for comfort, I've seen the photos from some of the guys. They get, moldy bologna for lunch. Yeah. They don't get that here because it is a crime against humanity in Canada. We're very concerned about our inmates. In the US, they're like, dude, you shouldn't have gone to jail.
Yeah. Not to say we don't have problems in Canada. We do.
Oh, we do. Absolutely.
The prison system, but to sit there and make the claim that, Canada is this tyrannical, oppressive state where people's rights are constantly being violated and no, it's actually way worse in the US. 80,000 people in solitary a day, where James is saying that's torture. Well, there are rules that are applied. Each state is somewhat different. And in Canada, our rules for solitary confinement are much more stringent than they are on the US side. So he's just out to lunch on this.
When I even believe it was either Pat or Tamara that had said, even while they were in solitary, they got limited yard time, but they did get yard time. And that was during COVID. So, I mean, this is COVID. COVID has passed. They're no longer doing the COVID protocols. So, I mean, if he goes to solitary confinement, it will be either because he's afraid and he wants protection from the officers, the guards, or he's just not, he's not following the rules and they're putting him there.
I've never been arrested. I've never been to prison as a prisoner, but I have been in detention centers covering stories. Yes. And if I was in there, I would welcome solitary confinement because a lot of the people, the inmates, are crazy and violent. So just put me in there away from all the craziness and the violence, please. But
I don't know if James is an only child, but I grew up as an only child. So for me, I could keep myself entertained for days. But, I mean, if he isn't, I'm so sorry. Maybe get a friend cockroach. I don't know. But I mean, honestly, I know guards. They're decent to the people that are in there. They understand their stories. They get to know them. And Tamara talked about that. in her book. But I mean, you know, it's not the end of the world. And honestly, you were working with the US government. Do you not see that as a problem?
Yeah, and even though he keeps saying he wasn't there to overthrow the government, he did produce the memorandum of understanding, which can be interpreted that way, whether he chooses to, say it
Admit
wasn't.
it. Even Keith Wilson was against the MOU.
Yeah.
I believe it was Keith Wilson through Tamara Leach that got him to withdraw it. They were pretty upset about that document.
Yeah,
although their biggest thing was it's gobbledygook, and has no real foundation. It seemed to worry the Parliament, so that we did need to get rid of it. And I've admitted I signed it. I signed it back in December, prior to Convoy. It was sent to me, hey, sign this. It's to help get the COVID mandates dropped. I didn't even read it. I just went, get COVID. Yeah, here, sign it. I'll send it back. It wasn't until last night that I started reading it, and I'm going, now I understand why I never read it, because I'm just like, this is, it's a lot. And he's not the only one that wrote it. And
just to be clear, that MOU, it did call for the government basically to step down if they didn't
comply. To step down, yes.
Yeah, just to step down.
Who was going to be in place when they stepped down?
They were going to basically appoint some sort of a
council,
not democratically elected. It's like, so what the hell is
Wasn't that Mark Carney before we had the election and everybody was all upset about that? Right? James Bauder and his MOU is going to do the same thing, and everybody should be okay with that.
And then to sit there and say, well, I wasn't there to overthrow the government, but now look where he's at. He's down there he's supporting the 51st state agenda. He's using his personal legal problems, parlaying that into a legal challenge against the Canadian government. He's weaponizing his charges against Canada and helping Trump annex our country. And he's just said that on this program.
He did. So, I was very shocked at some of the stuff he said, because I've never heard it before. And I was just like, are you kidding me? If my husband could be here, he's not. He had to go back to work tonight. But he could tell you, I was hot under the collar last night listening to James, because I can tell you that's not the story he sold me when he talked to me. And I'm like, I asked him to squash his convoy because I had mine up, rolling and going.
Yeah. And I've got some of those emails or messages you sent me. I can put those up on the screen.
Sure.
James says that he started the convoy, which, in a way, he's been planning all kinds of stuff against the government since 2019. But
I've never denied that he had his own thing. And it's like you always say, two things can be right at the same time.
That's right. Yeah.
So yes, no, I didn't work for James. I didn't work for Bear Hug. I had my own, and it turned into the Freedom Convoy. Exactly. It was Convoy 2022.
Okay, let's bring this up on the screen here. And I don't know if I have these in any reasonable order for you. I can start there, and I can flip around, find you whatever slide you want.
It would be the one with a big long email from. Keep going. Right. That's where I'm. There it is. That is the email that he sent to the Women's Confederation of Trucking, and Shelley, who my husband has known for years, and I got to know just before the convoy. We had worked together with Carol Emma Rooney and reaching out to let them know about the deplorable conditions about trucking during COVID. We also appeared in a news article together. And this may be why she received this. I don't know and cannot confirm, but it is my opinion. that this is maybe why this was sent to her. And she forwarded to me, and I said, those are my dates. So somewhere in there, you'll see us, excuse me, conversing about those are my dates. I'll call James right away and get him to change my dates. And then in the email that I sent you from myself to James Bauder, it says, I need you to change your convoy dates.
Yeah, I got right here, I think, right there.
Yeah, I can't see it. It's like 2 inches, and I just started wearing glasses.
This is January 12th, 2022 at 11:13 p.m. And the original message here came actually earlier than that on at 5:48 p.m. Can you push back your convoy a few days? Leave on the 26th. We got momentum in the convoy to end mandates and can get my groups there, but you need to change the dates, Brigitte. So that's your message to James. And then he emails back, nice talking with you, Brigitte. Looking forward to meeting tomorrow.
Yeah, so that's in between the first email and the second. He had called me, Pat King's looking for you. And I'm like, who? And he's like, Pat King. He's trying to talk to you. So while we're talking, I sent Pat King a message. I was able to find out pretty easily who Pat King was. And I was like, hey, you want to put my convoy on your show? I had no idea he was working with James at the time, but he's like, oh yeah, let me get Pat on the phone with you. And so Pat, myself, and James, so I have two guys on me going, oh yeah, no, we put aside our differences when we went to Peterborough Pete's. And I'm thinking, why are guys from out west going to Peterborough Pete's? Let Ontario handle it. Yeah. No, it was for the guy that ended up being closed due to convoy due to mandates. I can't remember the name of the restaurant now, or the guy's name.
Peterborough.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
it's just part of the story. Yeah, it's a minor detail, but they were over there, and so they made up, because Pat didn't like James because of his behavior at the previous convoy. And so, but they put everything aside and they're good now. And they've done this before. They know how to deal with Ottawa. They would be and I'm like, well, we're not going to Ottawa. And they're like, well, why not? Why wouldn't you go to Ottawa? Because it's a much bigger footprint if you're across the country, just like CBSA was. That was the whole deal. We were supposed to be like CBSA.
Canada Border Services Agency?
Yes. Canada. Sorry, I'm so used to acronyms. They had a strike in August of 21. They left trucks sitting on the roadway. Truckers were getting ticketed because all of a sudden traffic would come to a stop, and they were there for up to 14 hours. So they got fined. Now, look, I was only there for 2. I was lucky. I was on Blue Water Bridge, and I was only there for 2. But people were angry. People were mad. And people were calling. And they solved the differences and ended the labor dispute. That's what I expected. 24 to 48 hours, all across the country, making a footprint, making noise, and we would be talked to within 24 to 48 hours. And you know what? Maybe we would have if I wouldn't have worked with James. That's a hard pill for me to swallow. Yeah. And I take, I take full responsibility for agreeing to work with him, not for him, and not to be demeaned and talk to the way he thinks he can talk to women.
Indeed. I mean, you look at this from a government perspective. Yeah, you have a bunch of very upset Canadians. Obviously, they're there because of the issue on the mandates, the vaccines. But then at the center of this thing, they have government intelligence. They have CSIS, RCMP, provincial police services giving them intelligence information. And what are they seeing coming across the country? A bunch of separatists.
Yeah. Well, you know, in all fairness to the RCMP, they can't spell either. And I don't know who the Brigitte is they typed on their little form for the POAC, but you can ask her to move the heck out, please, because that's not me.
Okay. But the point, but you understand the point, right?
It was my face, but not my name. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so from a from Justin Trudeau's point of view, you got a bunch of angry separatists on their way to Ottawa, and with F Trudeau flags, and
right,
F Trudeau, and then they're all out in front and they're all angry and they got this gigantic you understand that perspective suddenly changes just a little bit once you have this other information, right?
Right. Well, and this is why most of us couldn't understand what the issue was,
right?
Because we didn't have that information and we were right there, right? And I lay some of the blame on Liberal MPs and MPs for that. I went to school. I grew up with Michael Cote, and I did reach out to his office. He wasn't definitely elected at any point in time during the time I knew him. I was kind of shocked when I went, hey, that's Michael. I know him and his family very well. And I knew his mother very well. I mean, I used to hang out at the house, right? So I reached out to Michael's office to try and talk to him. And I'm like, look, just give me a few minutes. Let's talk. Let's solve this. And let's go about our day. Like, let's go home, right? I want to go home. I wanted to go home to work, not home to poverty and watching everything I've worked for over the course of my lifetime be taken away. They weren't offering social assistance. They weren't offering anything. And we weren't offered jobs unless we were willing to take immigrant status or immigrant visa payments, right? I started at 47 cents a mile and I was offered 32. Well, you know what? I'll sit home on welfare. Oh, wait, I wasn't entitled to welfare because I didn't take a job. I couldn't get welfare. So, I mean, they pushed us to the limit.
Yep.
And they pushed it so that you were financially destroyed. If there is any fight in this game, that is where the fight is. And if you look back at 1944 with the Japanese Canadians, that too was their fight. Yep. It was the fact they took their money, which mine is still missing. I'm the only one, apparently, that still has money that is missing, literally missing. And do you know what bank has it? RBC in the USA. So he wants to go down south. Well, maybe his bank account will go missing too, and it can't be found. But mine is missing, right? So in 1944, they took their houses, they took their businesses, they took their bank accounts, and they put them in concentration camps.
Yep.
In Canada, we were setting up for all of those, except we were only being threatened. I personally was threatened with detention for an undisclosed amount of time. Was that going to happen next? I don't know. And I won't speculate. People say there were concentration camps. I don't know. But I know the first half of it started. So if that's what our fight is, if we want to fight against how it was taken care of in COVID, our fight is right there.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not with running around and with other governments to try and win over our government. I don't know how that's going to work anyway.
Yeah, and as I pointed out to James last night, and he seemed unaware, but the mandates were in place on the U.S. side too, and
yes, they were.
And the U.S. government imposed restrictions on drivers crossing the border. So it's actually, if you're trying to cross into the border at that time, it was the U.S. government that was going to stop you when you hit.
Not really.
On the other side,
they were.
No?
No. So commercial truck drivers were, for a large portion of truck drivers, they were allowed to go. It really depended on your carrier. So if your carrier didn't want to risk the fact that your load could be turned around and you could be turned around, you were let go. So that was my situation with Landstar, is they couldn't risk the fact they couldn't rescue the load, which I understood. I mean, as a business person and a business owner, I understand where they're coming from. However, the company my husband worked for, they just didn't bring him back. And the Border Patrol kept telling them, as long as you keep going and you don't go home, no, you don't have to follow any of that. So it was very confusing, but for the large part of it, the U.S. was not falling in line with the mandates unless you were a non-commercial driver.
But the
But
U.S.
it was there.
The government,
it was there.
The U.S. government did impose restrictions on
Yep.
unvaccinated, non-U.S. citizen drivers, that's Canadians, crossing
Yes.
U.S. land borders or ferry terminals, requiring them to be fully vaccinated against COVID-19 effective January 22nd, 2022. That applied to both essential and non-essential
Yes.
travelers, including truck drivers, with no exceptions for essential travel after that date. So
That's
is
correct.
what was in place. So for him to sit there and say that things were that much better on the U.S. side, no, there were a lot of, it depended on what state you went to. But I remember what was going on in New York, and I remember a lot of the stuff that was going on in California, right? So
Texas was not as bad as most. I was in Haw River, and a pilot, a manager looked at me and said he hoped I'd die. I was like, what? Like, you're really going to do that? He literally looked at me and said, I hope you die. And I was just like, wow, okay. I'm going to continue eating my little ice cream because you don't have to wear a mask when you're eating. So I'm going to eat the ice cream and leave. I remember being in Utah and being refused a bathroom. And at the time, of course, it was the woman's time of the month, and I had to change everything outside under the truck. So, I mean, James doesn't understand what it was like to be there even prior to the closure, right? Even prior to the closure, it was difficult. We had restaurants. I'm sure he's never seen our lounges. We had lounges. This stuff is all gone. Even today, it's in, for the most part, this stuff is no longer available to us. And most of the restaurants have turned into fast food instead of absolute restaurants where we could sit and eat and talk. The world has changed since COVID for truck drivers, and it's much lonelier than it used to be. But was it better in the US during COVID? I can tell you that if I hadn't been a truck driver, I'm not sure I could have lasted right from 2020 to 2022 like I did, with the continued lockdowns and being locked up. I'm a very social person, so I like being out and talking to people and meeting new faces. So yeah, the US much easier to do that.
Yeah, but the point is, James.
Yes, and it was closed till May. It was closed till May 23rd, 2023.
Yeah, and while he and then what he's talking about here in this clip is about, again, government use of force against the protesters that turns out to be something of a lie.
You're in real big trouble here, where you've hit a sore spot with the government. You're right on target, and you could be disappeared. You and your wife could be gone. So we made
unalived, kind of disappeared, or
just disappeared, per se, is the words that were used to me, and I understood that to be put away for a very long time.
He's saying that the Canadian government rounds people up, throws them in jail without any due process, no trials, that they just disappear you, either put you in jail or kill you. Disappear people. That's what that means.
No, understand that.
Well,
that's
the
lot
couple.
Of power.
I bet you.
The what?
Remember that couple? They were a high-profile couple, and they were murdered in their homes. And there was some conspiracy around that.
Shermans, I think their name was.
Yes.
Yeah, they're attached to a drug company. I don't think that's what
Right.
he's really getting at here. He's saying that if you're opposed to the government, they will disappear you. Anyway, let him keep
Right.
on talking.
They've got a lot of power in Canada to do vicious acts on its own citizens, and they've got a history of doing stuff like this. So
I went searching again today. Like, I'm like, no, I've covered news for like over 35, 40 years. Like, no, the government here
Well,
doesn't really do much of that. In fact, you know, the best thing I could find today was there was a, what was it? There was a case of, what was it? There was the RCMP made some sort of inaccurate accusation against some sort of a, what was it? A prisoner. And it was, but the guy was arrested on the US side and then deported to Syria. But it was the US government that did it. But it was based on Canadian information. So again, it was not, that was like as close as I could come to finding something that really matched what James is talking about here. And the US was involved in it.
If you look at it more like with the EA being called, wasn't it because protesters who are separatists at the time of the FLQ crisis murdered MPs and put them in their trunk? I think that might be part of
well, of course, you know, the FLQ but even there, okay, even there, those have to, I'm just from memory, the FLQ did murder a Canadian politician. And then, was it a politician?
I believe so. Okay. I'm trying to remember too.
Or was it diplomat maybe? Anyway, I'll look it up. Let me just a second, because I want to be accurate. In fact, let's take a little break. We'll come back. I'll make sure I get my facts straight on this, because I don't like to just kind of fly by the seat of my pants on this. But I also know that the political activists, some would say terrorists, who perpetrated that crime, they didn't even seek asylum in the U.S. They ended up going to Cuba in the end, which granted them asylum.
You know, I looked into that, and you know how James was saying that he could go to Russia. He could actually still go to Cuba.
He could.
Why wouldn't you go to Cuba?
Yeah,
Cuba's beautiful, and they love Canadians, and it's warm all the time.
That's right. I will be right back. Hang on.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, defending free speech, Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, we're back. I see Bridget's not with us, so let me just take another quick break.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, so let me just pull this down for a moment while I provide the background.
Sorry,
on
we
this.
needed a potty break.
So, yeah, so FLQ crisis, the October crisis is what it was called. This was in October of 1970, involved a series of events that was the result of actions by the Front de Libération du Québec, FLQ, a Marxist-Leninist and Quebec nationalist parliament paramilitary group. And James was there last night calling for nationalism. They advocated for Quebec's independence from Canada's separatists, right? So, yeah, they did. They were formed in 1963. They kidnapped James Cross. He was a British trade commissioner in Montreal from his home. And the FLQ demanded the release of 23 political prisoners, as they called them, FLQ members convicted of crimes. They had a $500,000 ransom, and they wanted their manifesto broadcast, as well as safe passage to Cuba or Algeria. So then Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau, Justin Trudeau's father, engaged in negotiations, agreeing to broadcast the FLQ manifesto on CBC, Radio Canada, on October 8th, and the manifesto denounced capitalism, federalism, and perceived oppression of French Canadians, calling for a socialist revolution, which is what James says he's against as well, because he's a nationalist, but not a socialist. Whatever. Then the days later, the FLQ's Chenier Cell kidnapped Pierre Laporte, Quebec's Minister of Labor and Vice Premier, while he was playing with his nephew outside his home in Saint Lambert, Quebec. And this act intensified the crisis. And on October 17th, Pierre Laporte was found strangled in the trunk of a car in Saint Hubert, Quebec. So he's the person who was killed. On December 3rd, 1970. James Cross was released after 59 days in captivity. So that's why I wanted to make sure I got my facts straight. A politician and basically a diplomat, but it was
Right.
the politician who was murdered. And it wasn't the Canadian government who disappeared him. It was the other way around.
Exactly. And that's actually part of my daughter's father's history, is that their family actually moved from Quebec to Ontario because of the FLQ crisis. So yeah, it's something that they remember very well.
And that's when Justin Trudeau's father, Pierre, I was only 5 years old at the time, but that's when his dad brought in for the first time the War Measures Act, other than during a time of war. And it was because of the FLQ crisis, which he saw as a national security risk to Canada. And then his son used it again during the convoy, only then it was called the Emergencies Act, a softer, gentler name for the same damn thing.
The difference between the two is his father actually gave the protesters a voice. Justin did not.
That's true. Although in that particular case, because of the nature of what it was, the kidnappings and stuff, I'm not sure I agree with broadcasting their message on national radio or television, because, as Ronald Reagan taught us, you don't negotiate with terrorists. But the vast majority of the people at the Freedom Convoy were not terrorists.
No, we were hardworking Canadians that were being pushed to the wall, and there were no options. So we needed to open up a line of communication and have some options. We watched them bail out airlines. We watched them bail out motor companies. We watched them bail out everybody, Loblaws, whatever. But yet the actual hardworking middle-class Canadian who was being put out of work as a business owner didn't get anything, didn't get any help. And it was, you take the job or else. That's coercion. He was right. He called it something else, but it's coercion.
Right.
And it's
what he did.
So, I mean, that is coercion. in its purest form, all you have to do is look up FMCSA regulations, which truckers are very familiar with, and all day long, forcing someone to do something against their will or against legal, legal laws.
Yeah,
It
against their
is
constitutional rights.
it's right.
Yeah.
It means that is coercion, and you cannot do that. And that law applies in Canada as well. So did they take it too far? They did. And that's exactly what the commission found.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Things may have been
Right.
different, though, for the protest, and maybe you would have had been given a voice, and maybe the actual government, not just a group of politicians did come out and speak to the protesters, a group of conservatives from the opposition side, but the government didn't come out to speak to people. But maybe that might have been different with this new information that we have about how the convoy was really being exploited by a group of separatists.
Right.
Right. Might have been a different story. And maybe things would be different if James didn't lie.
Like, it doesn't take very much of a smart man to put two and two together to realize that, okay, I need to do what's best for James and my wife.
The government has a history of disappearing people in Canada.
That's another conversation, and I exercise people to use their discernment and do their own research. And you'll find that
actually have it.
As
I was preparing for this, I did come across this, and can I ask you to just maybe clarify this? You were on the Sovereign Soul show, and right. I'm going to play a little clip. I just have this one, and there was some information in here that I wasn't aware of prior. So I'll just play it, and then you can just comment or clarify.
So it's wintertime, and what people watched were when the Ottawa Police Services, when the RCMP, and then also the mercenaries, which were hired, and the United Nations members who didn't speak English, dressed in uniforms, came in.
No, they didn't.
The jackboots literally moved everybody out of the city. We saw people who had been driven, loaded up cop cars, driven way into the outskirts of Ottawa, 20, 30, some reported 50 kilometers away from Ottawa, and dropped off that afternoon and that evening in the dead of winter and told never to return.
That's
Is that what happened?
Yes, I know people on our team had been arrested and dropped off out of town. So I know that actually really truly happened. And we were just, wow, the level of low, they're just keep lowering it. What lower low could we go to? Well, Trudeau solved that.
They just murdered an old man. They trampled a grandmother who barely survived with the horses. We have the WhatsApp feed from the RCMP, who rode those horses, cheering about it. That thread was exposed to 48 hours, not even after. And what happened next for you guys?
Sorry about that.
So Rick,
stuff in there I hadn't really heard before.
I apologize, but when you played that, the sound was muted. I didn't hear a thing.
Hear that? Okay,
not a thing. So what's your question?
Yeah, so Brad Wozni says that the government brought in mercenaries. And
yes.
And UN soldiers.
Yes. Well, from Ukraine specifically.
They brought in UN soldiers from Ukraine to.
Yes. Well, they used the UN planes, and they were Ukraine soldiers.
Ukrainian soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
Where was I watched that's news to me, James. I didn't see any evidence of that during the Public Order Emergency Commission inquiry. And all the, the documents showing where the police services came from. We know that it's RCMP, that it's local police, that there were police brought in from Quebec. and that these were police services.
So you're talking about a monkey court versus a real court.
Okay.
And a monkey court that has a self-appointed buddy of Justin Trudeau, whose mandate is to protect Justin Trudeau from treason and treason charges, to protect the government of Canada from treason charges. Do you think they're going to dissolve all the information?
Well, you're telling me that they brought in Ukrainian soldiers. Where's your evidence of that?
I don't have, and so here's the thing. I do not have that evidence. So I am guilty, and I will be coming forward on this, where I've been told by military folks that were boots on the ground, from vets, from intelligence folks that have a background in all this, that they were able to identify 2 UN planes that were flown in about 4 hours east of Ottawa. So this is what I was told, and that the origin of the planes came from Ukraine. Now, I don't have any more evidence other than being told.
So somebody just told you that.
Yeah, we're talking. We had some really good intelligence officers that have years and years and years of experience. Former military.
Thing I heard there, James, was that an old man was murdered.
Well, so that's Brad's story, and I have been told that no, he wasn't. So there's conflicting reports out there. I do know that I was.
Yeah, don't stop Brad though. Brad don't challenge him on it. Just they go around murdering people and just go along with it until I talk to you about it. Weeks later.
Present.
Well, and the other thing is, Rick, the whole thing with Ukraine started just within the convoy, right? So would it not make more sense that those planes brought Canadian soldiers, which we promised to Ukraine, that they took them?
The whole thing is just a bunch of bullshit, Brigitte. He's spinning it up because it serves a dual purpose for the MAGA group that's opposed to the war in Ukraine. So that he just made that shit up where other people did, and he's repeating it because they just hate the freaking Ukraine, whatever. They're just against it. So this serves a dual purpose. And this was never part of the narrative during the Freedom Convoy. It's only just a new thing that's just started. Now it's not just UN soldiers that they claim were brought in. Now it's Ukrainian soldiers because they really hate those freaking Ukrainians because they're all pro-Russia, and he wants to freaking go to Russia, and he's a Putin boy. And that's what that whole freaking thing is. And as far as those planes, I've looked into that in the past, and that's another big pile of crapola.
Weren't they not in North Bay or Thunder Bay getting service?
Exactly. That's a place where those planes land regularly for service. It's a service depot. So they had somebody just shoot video of planes there, and then, as good propagandists do, they just put a caption on it, like text, saying that this is whatever they want it to be. There's a picture of a plane. Oh, these are this is a plane bringing UN soldiers in to beat the shit out of your protesters. That's what that is. And you just have to show a picture of a plane and then just make any claim you want on it. And any idiot out there who doesn't take the time to even check, the basic information is just buys it. Just swallows it, hook, line, and sinker, and then repeats it, and it comes all the way over here. And by the time it gets down the grapevine to James on this show, it's turned into people are being murdered, and it's Ukrainian soldiers that we hate, and it's a big giant money laundering grift because it's Ukrainian soldiers. You can blame the Ukrainians now for beating the crap out of the Freedom Convoyers in Canada because they hate freedom. What a load of shit.
And the conflict only started, I think halfway through the Freedom Convoy. The conflict in Ukraine started then, and we offered soldiers. So like I said, if we're looking for maybe an ounce of truth, maybe he did get something that the Ukrainian soldier, but it was more to bring Canadians to Ukraine, and now it came back for service.
We've never offered soldiers to Ukraine other than for training. That's all we've ever offered. We don't have Now, some people, from around the world have joined the Ukrainian military voluntarily, but not through like government conscription or any government program to send Canadians or Canadian soldiers to Ukraine. It just isn't happening, hasn't happened, not happening. It's probably never going to happen. And it's just not, it's not true.
I'm just trying to find the ounce of truth in it somewhere. Like,
there's none. It's just a pack of lies. And so I'm sorry. This is the thing with that interview last night. James and I have always been very friendly. He considers me to be a friend, but I serve the public and I serve truth. And if someone's just going to come on here and lie, and I know that they're lying, I'm not going to let it slide. And if someone says that people were murdered by the government,
nobody was murdered.
Nobody was murdered at the
Tom Marazzo came out and said that, I think within 10, 12 hours afterward. He said, no, the guy didn't die. He's fine. But Suto was injured. But and I mean, that's just the way it is, right? So I mean, you put yourself in front of a horse, you're gonna get knocked over.
That's right. Let me just finish up with his little clip here. I think we're near the end.
Grandmother and another gentleman got trampled. I seen it with my own eyes. And from there, like I was right there.
Good photo op too.
And from there, I've heard conflicting reports that that gentleman was dead. And then I've heard also where some folks have come forward from his family and said, no, he's alive. So it's interesting how social media influencers, podcasters, folks that we follow have varying degrees of information that may or may not be correct. Okay.
Indeed.
So I've always operated on the same facts as I can present them through my eyes from day one, and I have never veered off of that. And I've always told people that you've got to do more constructive collection of information to get. Instead, here's what'll happen. Is there's some people out there that are going to see that Brad Wasley show and they're going to believe it.
But you didn't stop him when he was talking.
He didn't correct him.
And
no, not once.
Nope, that's right.
And Rick, you have you didn't get to where you are. You're an investigative journalist, which means you're not going to take just one source. You're going to dig, and you're going to get multiple sources, and then you're going to weigh them out and go, okay, somewhere in here is, to the best of my recollection as an investigative journalist, the truth. Correct?
Isn't that what you're doing tonight?
Is no one was murdered during the Freedom Convoy.
I would tend to agree. I think
there's zero evidence of that. Yes, there were some people trampled. There was video of a guy laying in the snow being pulled. He was just saying, go ahead, pull me away. So from a distance, it kind of looks like he could maybe have been a dead guy. He's just laying in the snow while they pulled him.
He got trampled up a little bit.
Deleted. He was not dead.
No, and I think the family
nobody was murdered during the Freedom Convoy.
The family, I think,
and James, I submit to you that there is zero evidence, because it didn't happen, that there were no Ukrainian soldiers on the front line there.
I think they were the Quebec ones.
They're not Ukrainian soldiers. There was no military there. It was police services.
I would agree with you. I would agree with you on that. So that's the references of folks have got different opinions. Everybody has got to slow down. Okay.
Yes, and because when it comes to things like that, it's not about opinions. It is about facts and real information, and it's important that we stick to the truth, right?
Correct. I 100% agree with you on that.
Especially when
I'm glad you cleared that up, because those that are going to go watch that show, they may go down that rabbit hole and start to believe things that they shouldn't be believing. And I'm not responsible for a multitude of misinformation and disinformation. And as I mentioned, that's on both sides, the left and the right.
And you should be proactive then in minimizing that and trying to correct it. But you didn't stop him when he said that they murdered people. You didn't,
Right?
didn't even skip a heartbeat. No,
No.
didn't blink an eye. Just nodded in agreement. That's what he did. And why? Well, because it makes the story, about
Much better.
persecution a whole lot better. There's
Absolutely.
that old saying again, right? Never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Well, and he did say that now he's looking out for James. Although all the messages he put out was he was still fighting for freedom for Canadians. But he said on your show last night, he's fighting for his own freedoms and that he's taking care of James.
Right.
I mean, I looked into the asylum process today, of course, because we're getting into all of this. But it was before we talked. And he could have taken Sandy with him. So I don't understand why she's not there. It's very puzzling to me why she's not there. I mean, I hear they're doing well. That's great that they're doing a long distance relationship, but I really wonder why he didn't bring her. I mean, my husband's coming with me if I'm claiming asylum anywhere. I mean, I'm not leaving him behind. We have to leave all our stuff behind. You don't get to take it.
Yeah.
So
Pretty interesting. I'm scratching my head. He sent me a message today. I'm going to share it with you.
Was it nice?
Rick, thank you for the harsh lesson of who says they are a friend and then openly enjoys ambushing me. I never ambushed him, and I take no joy in this. This is incredibly stressful for me, actually, doing anything like this. And, anyway, old saying, fool me once, shame on you. Rick, you lost my respect and a friend last night. I hope it was worth it, sir. Goodbye. James, I am not the one who lied. I didn't present any information here. You presented it all, pretty much, in one way or another, one fashion or another. This is your story, your words. I just let you share it. And then I just told the truth and provided the proper perspective on this and challenged you when I caught you in lies. So if anybody's lost respect, sir, it's the other way around. And I told him I would address this tonight. And then he texted back and said, you could just delete the episode from YouTube and X and move on.
Why?
Yeah.
Why would you do that? Because James was untruthful. I mean, why would you do that? You don't delete your interviews, as far as I know. I haven't seen you delete a one. And
I have copyright issues and things of that nature, but no. But anyway, he goes on, he says, there is nothing to address. I'm not so sure about that. You proved, especially if you're accusing me of ambushing you and doing something incorrect, then there's a lot to address, in which case, if there's anything I have gotten wrong, you let me know. I will issue a correction. I will even outright apologize if I've gotten anything wrong. So
he just said you were an investigative reporter and you do a great job. So what's the issue?
Right. So you proved last night what your true intentions were by bringing me into your echo chamber. James, I really, I extend an invitation to everyone to call into the program, especially regulars who are welcome to call in. And I never know who's going to call in. Frankly, I don't even have proper controls or vetting on people who call into the program. When the numbers come up, I'd have to remember the phone number. I don't even know who's calling in. Okay. So you could have had all your friends. And if you want to talk about echo chamber or attacks, the chats and Rumble are gone. But I was being attacked like crazy on Rumble Channel 2 with a bunch of people who were basically on your side saying that I was attacking you. So there was a whole group of them over there. You played me like a fool, he says, and I thank you for that, as it will only make me wiser and stronger in the end. I made a few errors of which I take ownership of. have reflected, prayed, and moved on. Well, James, if you have made errors and you want to correct them, you are welcome to come back on the program. I responded and said, no, I did not ambush you or play you for a fool. You told your story. I shared the truth. If errors were made, they can be addressed. You can come back on here at any time and address them. He says, goodbye, Rick. So then I just replied, what did I get wrong? And then I waited and I waited and I waited and I waited some more. Then I waited more and they never responded. So I responded back and said, exactly nothing. I got nothing wrong. That's why he hasn't responded. Now, if there is anything that he wants to clarify, again, the invitation remains open. Now, James and I have always been friendly. I was exceptionally disappointed in the lies that he told last night. But I serve the people. And here's the thing. He says that I'm not his friend. Yes, I am, James. I am your friend. Do you know why I'm your friend and Brad Wozni is not? Because I, sir, will not let you live a lie. That's why, because I don't require you to. There is no freedom in a lie. If you want to live a lie, you go hang out with Brad Wozni, who lies his ass off every single night. But when you come here, I will free you from the lie, and I will make you a free man by pointing out inconsistencies and lies so that you are then free of that burden. Do you know how much of a burden that is on human beings to have to remember the lies and spin the lies and then add another layer to the lie? And then you're trapped in the lie. That is a prison. That is tyranny. That is even self-imposed slavery. That is being a slave to a lie. There's no freedom there, sir. I am your friend.
Most people learn that in their teenage years.
Yes.
And, you know, you get over it by the time you're a young adult. You're finished being a young adult.
What?
There's one thing you can't do with Convoy, and you can't lie about it. And I try to give each of them a little bit of piece of, you know, well, maybe. And that's honestly to my own demise, I think it sometimes, because I try and give them the benefit of the doubt, like I did with the Ukraine thing. I'm like, well, maybe the plane came back from Ukraine. You know, maybe there's an ounce of something in there. But dealing with James has been very challenging and difficult right from the get-go. So I'm sorry you have to go through his temper tantrum, but
no, it's cool. Like it comes with the territory, right? I'm just disappointed. And again, no freedom in a lie. And I don't want to live a lie. I'm not going to live your lie. I'm not going to live Brad Wozny's lie. I'm not going to let a bunch of lies destroy my country either. Okay.
Right.
And because you sit there and you keep saying that you want to prosecute Trudeau for treason. Sir, what you're engaging in is the very definition of treason. That's what you are doing. That's why the government's upset with you. That's why they're investigating you. That's why the whole Freedom Convoy was placed under such scrutiny. That's why the government was worried about it. That's why they called the Emergencies Act. It's because of you and what your actions and your MOU and all your previous activities and your shenanigans and your lawfare and your pseudo law and your common law and all your bullshit law and all the problems and all your U.S. generals and your U.S. friends and all of these activities that were going on in the background that you never told anybody about because you said you were there for the mandates when you were really there to destabilize the government, maybe not overthrow it that day, but you've been working on it over time and not really revealing your true intentions. That is a deception. That is a lie. And that is slavery. And I ain't living that. So I'm sorry. No. I am your friend because I'm calling you out. I'm a friend of Canada. I'm a loyalist. You might be a patriot, but this brings me all the way back to the rebellion of 1837 in Canada, where we had a very similar kind of thing. The people on the pro-US side who wanted to become part of the United States, they were called patriots. And then you had the loyalists on the other side. So, it's taken me a long time to understand. Well, the first time I heard people during around the pandemic time talking about we the people. I'm like, that's an American thing. What the hell are they talking about? What the hell are you talking about? It's because you're patriots, U.S. patriots. You're traitors. And a lot of you don't even realize it because you've just been sucked down the rabbit hole. And you're becoming a bunch of American separatist patriots on the Canadian side. They've turned you into a bunch of unwitting traitors. You're all treasonous. Thank you, James. That's you, sir. That's what you've been doing. That's what you're doing right now. That's what you're doing down in the U.S. That's what you're doing by weaponizing your court case against the Canadian government. That's what you're doing with MAGA. That's what you're doing with Trump. That's what you're doing with, what's his name there? Todd Callender, the lawyer. That's what you're doing with RFK Jr. That's what you're doing, frankly, with those stupid ostriches out in Edgewood, BC, because it all ties together. All right.
Oh my gosh. We have so talked about that.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I couldn't believe it. I was like, the freedom movement's going to save ostriches that were meant for science to put masks back on us and to take away beef and that were injected with COVID. Are you kidding me? What's wrong with us? What is, I just like, this isn't happening.
It's not about the ostriches. It's about a challenge to the Canadian government, the authority of the government. It's about agriculture, supply management systems. It's about access to the Canadian market. It's about lowering food standards in Canada to bring them into alignment with what is going on with U.S. agriculture, because they want more cross-border trade. They want access to the Canadian market so that they can actually get rid of small family farms and small family operations and have them absorbed, taken over, assimilated by giant U.S. agribusiness, huge corporate poultry operations. And I'll tell you where it's going. They're just going to feed you the infected freaking birds is where it ends up, because as those birds become infected, they're not going to have inspections. And when the operators of those facilities become aware that the birds are ill, they're going to kill the damn things and jam them right into the food system to get rid of them. And you're going to eat them. That's what's going on. You guys just haven't figured it out. But you see, and the ostriches are the Trojan horse that Katie Pasitny mentioned, because it's not about the ostriches, it's about the chickens. Because they're trying to set the legal precedent with the ostrich farm for a variety of other reasons. There are other elements to that, but it's really about setting a legal precedent that undermines the authority of the Canadian Food Inspection Agency so that they can't go in and cull anymore, to change the federal policies, to bring it into alignment with what RFK Jr. wants, which is to just let the disease rip. And then they got rid of the studies on the human vaccine for bird flu, but the Trump administration is still funding research into the vaccines for the chickens, because they want to vaccinate the chickens just like the Chinese, so that the farmers,
so that it's in the food supply,
so they can inject the birds, not cull them, reducing their costs because they won't lose their flocks, but then you're going to eat it. You're going to eat it.
Have you ever been to Alcatraz in Tennessee?
Alcatraz, go get your T-shirt.
No.
It's selling them.
No. In Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. Have you been to Alcatraz?
No, I haven't. But Trump wanted to reopen.
It talks all about the Kennedys, and it's not what you think. It's very interesting. The talk about the Kennedy family. Yeah, if you haven't been, go, because I was like, oh, no way. But yes way, apparently.
Well, hey, James, you've got so much more freedom down there. You're living in a country where they're taking, they're scooping people up off the street based on their skin color and maybe a tattoo or two. And then they're saying, you're guilty because I looked you up in a database. No due process for you, no habeas corpus, no arraignment in court, just off to Alligator Alcatraz for you. We're going to hold you down there for a little while. Then we're going to put you on a plane, ship you off to a gulag in El Salvador, where you may or may not ever emerge alive again. And I can tell you too, sir, that right now, as it stands, 13 people have died in ICE custody. That's so far, including one Canadian. Now, I guess maybe you've lost sight of that too. But as I sit here tonight, I'm not so sure that you got a whole lot more freedom with this Trump administration in charge down there that I frankly am incredibly disappointed in. And I have to admit that I held Trump in high regard at one point, and I was very hopeful because he did seem to represent something akin to a Reagan-esque renaissance of freedom of some kind, and maybe a little less government and lower taxes. But in the end, what are we getting? We're getting some sort of neo-populist communo-fascism where they're just scooping people up off the street. And then you're complaining about Ukrainian soldiers, which is a lie, beating the crap out of freedom protesters, when in reality, the government that's really putting the military on the streets is the Trump government, because they've got Marines on the street right now in frickin' Los Angeles. So you tell me, which is the authoritarian regime?
When, I agree with you, Rick. I loved Trump. I've been following him for a very long time. I've read his books. I watched his shows. I've used his techniques, and they were successful. But what I'm seeing now is like, it's over the top. Didn't he take a senator or someone? It was a government official, and he put him in an ICE camp. It was like, wait a second.
I'm not sure if that's exactly true. I know that they've had, politicians arrested.
Yes.
Maybe not through the direct, not through the, the direct orders of
he
Trump,
was released.
But
through the ICE
all crazy.
campaign.
And because of the emotions are so jacked up and people are going so crazy, we've seen Democrat politicians assassinated, like actually assassinated. And I mean, in fairness, the zaniness, the craziness, somebody tried to shoot Trump too. So that's another thing. Okay. I don't want that in my country. I don't want to be any part of that. I don't want all that craziness up here. That's why, frankly, Sir John A. Macdonald said that, no, we don't want a republic like they have in the States, because after witnessing the American Civil War, right, he said, no, that's not the system that we should have here in Canada. So he advocated for what we have, which is a parliamentary democracy based on the Westminster system and what we've had coming out of, England over time. And it's worked out better for us, frankly, because, we don't have as much violence up here, but we're importing it, and it's coming, and you can see the psyop and all of the crazy. Oh my God, this is like,
we need to take care of that. I mean, they are saying that there's something like 33,000, not 30,000, I think only 3,000 or 1,700, something like that, of people that were not vetted coming into our country. We have to do better. Absolutely have to do better.
But it doesn't justify a freaking invasion. And I also know that a lot of these things that we see coming out of the Trump administration are just outright lies. Trump lies. He makes up numbers. They make up stats. All this talk about the fentanyl. There was another study that came out from a U.S. Organization just this past about 4 days ago, showing that all these numbers that Trump is citing about the U.S., the fentanyl problem and being, Canada being a major, it's not true. It's a lie, because they're using
I'd say it's the other way around.
Yeah, it is. The drugs are flowing up here from the States.
Yes.
That's the problem. Not to mention all the guns, like our illegal weapons come from the U.S. The problem is the other way around. And
it is.
We do have fentanyl labs, but the precursors come into Canada. And then actually I've shown that they are shipped overseas. What they're doing in
we do have a huge problem with visa holder drivers carrying as mules. And they carry both ways. They do carry both ways. But most of the stuff comes up from the US. It's not, we're hearing them say now that FMCSA is going to enforce with DOT. So FMCSA is the Federal Motor Association. It's a regulation that for us, DOT is the Department of Transportation. So when we get stopped on a scale, if we can't read and write English, and that's going to apply to Canadian citizens as well, which I definitely 100% support. not for the reason they say that, they can't read road signs. Yes, that's an issue, but honestly, I think it's a cultural thing, the way they drive, and they're more aggressive than a typical Canadian. They drive more aggressively, and honestly, I want to see these people stop being used. They're used. They're not paid. It's really hard for them. And people go, "Oh, you're too soft." No, I really, if you don't know what these guys go through, they don't go home. They come over from Russia. They come over from other places around the world, and they're offered 32 cents a mile while the rest of us are getting 65 and 70. It's not fair. It's not fair. They need to be treated better, but stopping them from being able to cross the border will stop the requirement for these visa guys anyway, because there's not enough there's not enough traffic within Canada itself to have just guys that can't speak English just running around Canada.
Well, just to kind of bring it back over to the James Bauder and separatist thing and your situation. I mean, he sat there and said that he started the convoy, but it's like you know that you started your convoy.
I do. I know that. Many people know that. Many people try and discredit that, but it's fact. It was put into the government's POEC. They know it's fact. They've put it out there. Several reporters didn't, because they were following the narrative of Leach and her lawyers. So, I mean, it all depends on who you talk to. It's even on Wikipedia at this point. I was like, really? I'm on Wikipedia? Well, that's kind of cool. But, I mean, that's fact. Did he have something going on? Like I've never discounted. He was doing whatever he was doing, but he wasn't doing a trucker convoy for the mandates like I was. He had other plans.
Yeah.
He wanted to further go ahead. And that also ties in with Leach when she wanted to spend trucker money on a building to continue protesting. I was there. Nobody can discount that I was in that car. I can tell you who was there, and I can tell you where we picked her up and what she ate in the car. So if you can tell me all of that and tell me I'm wrong, go for it. Right. But I know what I know.
And the common denominator with, this group of people is that they are separatists. That's what they were there for. That's why, as well, we Peter Turner, the union negotiator, protest negotiator, who offered his services free of charge. We knew also from the interviews that he did with Rudy Bruce, he indicated that they rejected him, they didn't want his help, and he warned them that if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to get arrested. And it was his assessment, and there was an acknowledgement that they didn't really want a solution. They were there to cause problems. Why? Because in the end, they were looking for a photo op. They were using the unwitting people who came there for genuine reasons to protest the mandates. They were just creating problems for which the government would not come out to negotiate any kind of solution to, because they didn't want a solution. What they wanted in the end was for the protesters to get the crap kicked out of them so that they could use the video to get people upset with the government even more over time. And that's why, as we showed in a previous broadcast here, when the police were telling everybody to leave, we had the separatists saying, no, you should all stay and more people should come, when they knew damn well
that was Keith Wilson, a lawyer, a constitutional lawyer, who should have known when the EA was enacted. Right. And I said to Chris, we can't do this. I've told him many times that his lawyer team is not in for his best interest. And I got told to be quiet and that he was on trial. And then what does he do now? He's, oh, I got bad advice. Well, dude, you got bad advice for a very long time. And I told you were getting bad advice and to save yourself. Right. But you couldn't work with Steve Freedom, who had several people that he worked with walk away from their charges, because how would it look?
And it's all about
Like-
the optics. It's all about how it looks. It's all about destabilizing the Canadian government. It's about convincing you guys out there that Canada isn't a real country. That's what Major Vallely told me. That's the key to everything. And it's all about the PR game, public relations. It's all about the marketing of this stuff. That's why they wanted the video of the people getting the crap kicked out of them, which, by the way, none of the main players were there to get the crap kicked out of them. It was all the innocent protesters who didn't know what the hell was going on and how they were being manipulated who got the crap kicked out of them. And now what's going on with James Bauder? The exact same damn thing, where he's got a media team managing his image and helping him get more profile online to continue this whole thing down there in the US of A, where this is another assault on our government, our sovereignty, our country, where we've got problems, but we need to fix those problems ourselves. Thank you very much, Mr. Trump. We don't need your help. We don't want to be part of your 51st state. And all your US generals, Mr. Bauder, tell them to stay home. We don't want them here, and stop manipulating and interfering in our politics. That's my message, my editorial message to you tonight.
And it's all about the money. It's every time they do anything, it's give me money. And I have been a thorn in their side, because they had stated that they needed legal fees paid for. The JCCF and John Carpe himself said that if you were criminally charged, that the JCCF would flip the bill. So you know what? Anybody that donated for legal fees, you got had. I'm sorry. And I've been out there and I've been vocal trying to tell you, these people do not have your back. I had your back. They got arrested before the beating started. And I told you that morning it was time to leave. We could always go back. I had your back. I still have your back. In court, when they wanted to add every one of the convoy participants' names to Paul Champ's lawsuit, I was the only one that sat there and said, that is ridiculous. You're asking for a mother who donated $5 and is on welfare to fight against $460 million. You know why they wanted your name on there? It was because it would lessen their responsibility. That's why. It is all about them. It's not about you.
Oh, Canada. I just, this is my home and native land. Stay the hell out of here. Okay. Leave us alone. We don't need any more problems. So,
and I keep fighting against these guys, and I'll keep doing it for you, whether you like me or not. I'm fighting for the people that participated, as well as myself. And I will still keep standing. And I, you may not like me because of things you've heard. Don't trust, verify.
Yeah. It's just, I'm not saying, and don't get me wrong, folks. We've got problems up here. We've got problems with our government.
Yes, we do.
We do, but we'll fix them. And it's up to us to fix them. It's really, that's what it comes down to. And I can see now that a lot of the problems we have really are because of these influences coming from other countries. The USA mainly right now, I would say, in my estimation. You might think it's other countries, but the biggest influence we have is coming from south of the border.
And I love the US people. I'm there all the time. I enjoy being in the US. It's not the people. It's people that have a plan and a goal. And, I mean, even the US wouldn't accept Canadians as Americans. They just wouldn't.
And I should clarify, I don't think this is actually coming like from the US government as a whole. Well, it sort of is now, but this is a MAGA thing. This is this whole movement to take over Canada. This is a Trump MAGA thing. It wasn't really the previous administration. Problems with them too, but you understand, this is a MAGA thing. This is a Trump thing. And this is Maple MAGA. That is the
and who brought that to Canada? It came from out west.
Right.
Same people, same separation, same ideas, same fundraising. It's always about the money. It's always about to get you upset. It's always about about working with the US and not being Canadian. That's not right. If you're Canadian and you're patriotic Canadian, you're here for Canada as a whole, not to put a hole in it.
And don't be fooled by that label that they put on there that they call themselves patriots. Because when you're seeing patriot, that means U.S. patriot. Took me a long time to realize what the hell that was about, but that's what it is. Even though some people don't realize that they're endorsing that. If so I think we need to learn a lesson from like the 1830s, 1860s. If you love Canada and you are patriotic, you are a loyalist. You're a loyalist.
I don't know if I like that term. I do like patriot much better,
but they've stolen it, you see, and they did that a long time ago. That's why you have to know your history, right? I was thinking about the rebellion of 1837, and then I have to remember my history on this. So, and I looked it all up. This is where it comes from. And they use.
I hate history. It's so dry.
No, but really,
but I do like some of it. I just, I can't remember the names.
This is how strange it is and how intertwined things are, though. Those rebellions of 1837 and 1838. You know who one of the main leaders was? William Lyon Mackenzie.
Wow.
Yeah, he was a rebel, but that's not the guy. But not the prime minister. It was William Lyon Mackenzie. King was the prime minister. William Lyon Mackenzie, the rebel, the patriot, that was his great-grandfather.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's interesting. Okay. Maybe I'll learn. Maybe I'll take some like history lessons from you because you kind of like boost it up a little. I mean, I liked the Debunker when I went there. I thought that was pretty cool. I went on my daughter's school trip, but when my daughter's school trip, maybe it was one of my other kids or somebody else's kid, but I went on a Debunker school trip and I was like, wow, this is pretty cool.
And I still love the United States. I do. I love the United States. I've always been a big USA fan, right? But I love my country. I'm not a traitor. I'm absolutely not treasonous, and I will stand on guard for thee. Absolutely.
I don't know if I'd, like shoot them or whatever, I mean, like standing with arms. I don't know if I'd go that far, but I'd at least feed them.
Yes,
definitely.
that's what I keep saying. If
I would cook for them.
Right. If they invade, I said, I'm going to put the barbecue on.
Right. Let's get the barbie out.
We'll talk about it.
Okay. We should have been tonight at Rib Fest.
There you go. Yeah, I did.
Why were we not there?
Because we're trying to save the damn country, Brigitte. That's why.
God help us. Like, really, God really needs to start helping us because, there's so many people led astray that believe these stories these people are telling. And it's, at first I thought, oh, it's just a little tiny story. Okay, whatever. And now they're ballooned into these big air balloons. I mean, it's not a little story anymore. I don't know how to stop them. And I don't know. I thought going after their conscience would make them tell the truth, but that hasn't worked.
it's something that it's a very simple thing. This is how you save the country. This is how you stop it. You just tell the truth. That's all there is to it. Tell the truth and share the truth to raise awareness, make people aware. Then people can make proper decisions based on real information. And some of the people who are sucked down into these rabbit holes can start living free again, free of the lie. Don't live the lie. That's slavery.
No, isn't this what they say? I remember I was looking it up for my book that the lie will travel around the world before the truth is even heard.
Yeah, it'll run around the world before the truth gets its shoes tied up. Yeah.
Yeah, boots on or something like that. Yeah. You're right.
Yes. And it's absolutely true. It's the propaganda, the misinformation, the psyop is so powerful right now, especially using new technology and algorithms and even AI.
And they have money. They have money.
And it's a constant flood. They're flooding the zone right now with lies. And James was doing that on the program last night. That's why I called him out, because it was like,
Well,
no,
he's
that's
in on
a
it.
lie. Yes, that's right.
He's in on it with Chris and Tamara for sure. He's working the Democracy Fund. You don't think the Democracy Fund would throw Chris underneath the bus, right? I don't think so. Although Ezra Levant has apparently, because he refers to him as the co-defendant. I mean, that was kind of funny to hear, listening to him say Leach's name 50 times and the Democracy Fund referring to Chris as the co-defendant. I mean, they never said his name, so they're obviously not happy with him and don't give him much relevancy anymore. So and that's who he's hooked up with. So he knows he needs to follow his P's and Q's or he'll end up irrelevant.
Yeah. And just kind of wrap up here tonight, I'm going to give you the final word, but I just want to say this to James again. James, I am your friend because I refuse to just buy into your lie. And I'm hoping that you will crawl out of that rabbit hole and start living freely again by living a life of truth, real truth. And, I just want to give you a piece of legal advice, not as a lawyer, but as a friend. I appeal to you, come back to Canada. It's in your best interest. Any lawyer down there in the US side is not advising you to stay there and wage this war, this legal lawfare that you're about to wage. They're not doing it because they have your best interests in mind. They're doing it because they have a political agenda and they're using you as a pawn. So as a friend, I appeal to you, come home, because in the long run, you will be far better off. If you just come back, face the charges, and make sure that you're back here in time for your next court date so that you don't face additional charges or penalties, and so that you're not in breach of any kind of conditions that may have been imposed upon you. Come back and just face the music, because I can tell you that chances are you're only going to get at most a few months in jail and probably only house arrest, not 15 years in prison. That is a self-imposed lie again. And if you do that, by the time you're done, you'll be able to go back to work and cross the border and travel in both countries freely. But if you don't, you'll never be able to come back to Canada again, because if you do, they will arrest your ass. So,
and if he loses his bid, he will never be allowed to enter the US again.
So where are you going to be?
Yeah, he's going to be in Russia. But I mean, honestly, James, I know you and I don't see eye to eye, and I'm not a friend, but I am telling you, this is the stupidest mistake you've ever made, is leaving Canada. You need to face your charges, and why add to them? Why add to them? That is not a smart move. And if those people are telling you to do this, if they're suggesting you do this, figure out what their motivation is and what's in it for them. Right. Because it's not you. It's not you. You are not being taken care of. You may be financially right now taken care of. They may be tossing silver at you. But once they're done with you, you will be in the same place you ran from. Honestly.
You will be indebted to them for the rest of your life. You will be controlled by them. You will be a slave to them. Do you not see that? This is a huge mistake, and it's so damaging to our country, and it's not right. Come home where you have support, and frankly, you have free legal representation here already. So you don't need to be raising funds and asking people for donations. You have the support that you need here already. This is in your best interests, James Bauder. Come home to Canada. It's better here. The grass is greener on the Canadian side.
And if you're sick, you don't have to pay to go to the doctor.
There you go.
You've already done it through your taxes. Now, Rick, are we going to let people assault us tonight or no?
Do you want to do call in? You want to do that?
I don't mind.
All right. Well, to do that, I have to send you the link to the other. I wasn't planning on it, but I'm cool with it. I'm cool with it. All right. I will send you a link to the phone system. Hang on. I got to set it up that way. You're a brave soul. They're not kind to me some nights.
You know what? I mean, after a while, it's just like, oh, do you have anything new? No. Okay. Well, have a nice night. Wow, that lie's gotten all the way over to Toronto now, huh? Like, it's just like, wow.
Here we go. Okay. I got to get your email address. I'll email it to you. So get your dialing fingers ready there, folks. So you can call in and ask Brigitte anything you want.
Well, I'm not telling you my bra cut size, so don't even ask.
Now, I, on the other hand, if you ask me that question, I might share
your bra cup size. I don't even. I met you in person. Come on now. I mean, like, you're not even an A cup.
Okay, I just emailed that to you. What we'll do is we'll run a little break here. We'll come back on the other side, and you guys can join the conversation tonight. Here's how to call in. Okay, Mavericks, it's call-in time. Join the conversation. Call 1-647-734-4220. Then enter the PIN number 860-075-764, followed by the pound sign. Exercise your right to free speech. Call 1-647-734-4220. Then enter the PIN number 860-075-764, followed by the pound sign. Call 1-647-734-4220. Then enter the PIN number 860-075-764, followed by the pound sign. Maverick News. Call now. The world is watching and listening to you. No, you go ahead there, Brigitte. Bridget's just getting herself ready. We're going to run a little promo here again, but I will put the phone number up on the screen while we wait for her to get situated. Let me put this up on the ticker on the bottom of the screen. You can join by phone at 1-647-734-4220. 1-647-734-4220. And then when prompted by the phone system, punch in that PIN number 860-075-764. And we'll get the phone system rocking and rolling here tonight. And you can ask Brigitte anything you want as we continue our conversation about Canada 51, Canadian sovereignty, the Freedom Convoy, and how it all meshes together. All right. Take another quick break. Come back on the other side of... What am I going to run here? What do you want to see? How about this one?
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, defending free speech, Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching. Maverick News. The world is watching. Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
Okay, I'm here, and let's bring Brigitte up on the other screen. And that's there. Almost have her. Hang on. There she is on the other system, and you guys can call in. The number's on the bottom of the screen there. All right, so the system is open now, and you guys can call again at 1-647-734-4220, the PIN number. When prompted, punch in 860-075-764, followed by the pound sign. That's the number sign. Or that's also a hashtag, right? You can call it whatever you want. All these different names, it's all jargon. Okay. So, did you see that Mark Carney went to the Calgary Stampede today?
I did. And actually, he looked much better in a cowboy hat than Trudeau. I was like, oh, okay, that's not awful.
Here,
I didn't see if he flipped pancakes. Did he flip pancakes?
He did. He did indeed.
Oh, okay.
In fact, here, let's show a little
Okay.
video while we wait for people to kind of start to warm up to the phones here. Here's Mark Carney. This is the Twitter feed. And
please welcome the Right Honorable Mark Carney, Prime Minister of Canada.
Oh my God, everyone's booing.
off to the gulag with all the people booing.
We're also pleased to be welcomed
I'm going to disappear you.
by Korea. Please welcome the Right Honorable Mark Carney, Prime Minister.
Okay, so there he is flipping his pancake. I'm going to take the audio down.
Oh, no, I don't want that pancake.
You're worse than Justin.
Yeah, he was actually, because I think Justin flipped it.
You're worse than Justin.
That is funny.
Well, at least they're round. When I make pancakes, they turn into sort of these abstract pieces of art.
You know what? I have to give my husband credit.
Yeah.
He makes better pancakes than I do.
I have.
Yeah.
Well,
He does it on a flat grill, the whole 9 yards. Whereas I was taught the European way, and it's not as thick, and it fills the whole pan, and you put it in a pan, and you kind of So it was totally not how he does it, but his pancakes are amazing, and I will eat his food any day. I married somebody that can cook. That's awesome. I can cook, but he can cook too.
Oh my. Well, I'm just lucky if I don't burn him. Who just called in?
I did.
Sorry, who's that?
Hello.
Hi, Bridget. I'm so happy to see you on Rick's show. I've been waiting for you to come out and spill the beans. We know who you are. We've seen it all. We followed you. Thank God. Now you got to put this little bitch. I'm sorry, Rick, for the cussing, but you got to put this little bitch, leech or lynch, or I'd love to lynch it. Okay. Okay. Now, is your book out? Is it finished? What's going down?
Okay, so editing has been, oh my gosh, a nightmare. But consequences inside the Freedom Convoy is in its final edit. And I'm not in a rush because I still have the $460 million lawsuit that my lawyer's like panicking about. So I'm trying to raise a little bit more money so that he doesn't panic. But the person that sponsored me really doesn't want to pay anymore to get a lawyer to read it. So I'm struggling with that aspect. I'm trying to get that done. But we are also started marketing and we've started looking at websites. So the process is slow, tedious. It is coming. And yes, and I had a panic earlier because book 2, which was 90% complete, disappeared. We can't find it. Yeah, so that was about a year and a half's worth of work that we can't find today. But I'm going to just calm down and look again tomorrow. Maybe it'll be back. If not, I'll have to write it all over again while driving 70 hours a week. But hang on, people. It's all going to come out every last little bit. And I will tell my story. So thank you. I want to thank you. Being a supporter of mine is not easy. And I thank you so much for sticking with me.
Brigitte, you and your puppy. Yeah?
Yes. Yeah, I got a second puppy. Demon that was in Ottawa passed away the weekend I had to leave for the POEC. So I was very stressed at the POEC because Demon had passed. Really, the morning we were leaving, I had to call my husband and ask him to help me get him out of the truck and to the vet. That was very, very hard. He had been with me for 18 years. And then he after about 6 months, maybe, my husband was like, "You are not the same person. You're stressed." And he got me another family member, a new family member. Mac is now 2, and he is totally running the house. And even BJ Dichter, my good friend who's stuck with me, has said, yes, life is definitely different since Matt came. So yes, the book is coming. There will be a book launch. So if you don't follow me, follow me. I am posting on TikTok and Twitter. The clandestine group got my Facebook, so I'm not there, but you can follow me on Twitter or X, and the details for that will come out, and there will be a book launch. So I'm very excited. Things are going forward, and thank you again.
Yippee. Take care, girl. Thanks,
before
Rick,
you
for
leave,
having her on.
Yeah, before you leave, can you tell me what do you think? Does Mark Carney look better in a cowboy hat or not?
It definitely looks better than Trudeau did.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I look goofy in a cowboy hat. I'm gonna find Pierre Poilievre now and see what he looks like in a cowboy.
Well, maybe I should head out to Calgary and wear mine because I do have quite a few.
Yeah, my big ears, they get covered. I don't know. My head's too small for a cowboy hat. I don't look right. Maybe you have to get the right hat.
Okay, thanks, Rick.
Thank you.
Bridget. Take care. Keep doing what you do. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
See ya. Okay.
See ya.
There he is. There's Pierre. And a reverse shot.
Is he wearing chaps? I'm like, look,
not sure.
Is he wearing chaps?
Someone yelled, "You don't even have a job." You know, it's not easy being a politician, right? Because everybody's taking a shot at you all the time. I have to say that.
It's no different than Convoy.
There he is. Oh, yeah. Let's see here. What's he doing?
He does have support.
Oh, yeah. He looks pretty good in a cowboy hat.
Not bad.
He pulls it off. I'm not. I don't look right. I look like a city slicker trying to be like I don't even look as good as Billy Crystal in a cowboy hat.
I'm looking around my office going, where is mine? I don't know where I put it last.
Well, they're cheering for him. Carney didn't get that kind of reception. There are a few people cheering, but a lot of boos out there in Calgary today. The Prime Minister. Not unexpected.
Well, I mean, if you look at the map is prominently blue, but it's the big voting blocks that are red. So until we change that, we're going to have a Liberal government. I mean, yes, there needs to be change in our voting system. And I don't disagree with them out west that they feel like they don't have a voice. But, you know, I mean, they have to look at their population too. They don't have the same population.
5 million people.
As,
that's not really, you know.
It's like, what's the size of Toronto?
Oh, I don't know. Is it 1.5 million, 2 million? I don't know. I'll look it up. I will look that up. That's a good question.
And I think Ottawa is now over 1 million as well. So,
yeah. Like, how do you justify, you know? Like, I get it, but.
And it's spread out. Like, there's Calgary, there's Edmonton.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it's really spread out. You know, there's Air and there's High Level.
Yeah, see, Toronto is 2.8 million just in Toronto. So
which is half of their population.
Half of the entire province in one city, right?
Yeah.
So you got to keep that in mind there, Albertanians.
Well, and you know what the funny thing is? There's a funny statistic, and I just thought I looked that up when they started with this rhetoric, was half of them, should they become American, would not be allowed entry into Canada. Half, no, maybe that's a little exaggerating. I think over the last 5 years, it was something like 43,000 of them were charged with a DUI. I'm thinking,
really?
If you had, it was a ridiculous number of Albertans being charged with a DUI. And I'm like, do you know that makes you uneligible to come back into Canada? Like, it makes you uneligible. So if you have family in BC or in Ontario, you better hope they can travel to you, because you're not coming back in. We don't allow DUIs back in Canada.
Yeah. Do you think that you think he's going to be successful in this by-election out in Alberta?
I actually do. But it doesn't do anything for us anyway.
Yeah.
If he wins the by-election, he's just back in Parliament, but he's not getting any, you know, it's not going to give him a leg up at all, you know, when dealing with the Carney government. Mm-hmm. And the Carney government, I have to laugh. I mean, Andrew Lawton did give a Liberal MP a run for his money when he was talking to him. I believe it was on the gun topics, but Andrew knows his stuff. He's been a reporter for a very long time. So when you get a position and you've only been in it for 3 weeks, and Andrew can run circles around you, you know, that's not good. Carney needs to have better appointments, and he doesn't right now. And then to see Chrystia Freeland into transportation, that really irked me, because I know what she did to us, and I'm not happy to see her there. So I'd like to see her, I don't know.
She doesn't
in
own
charge of media, maybe.
She doesn't own a car, right? She rents cars, though. Didn't she get a speeding ticket or something? Like
she did. She did. She rides a bicycle.
It's just, well, that's a form of transportation. Although I have to say,
and so did the witch in Wicked, didn't she?
I tell you,
saying.
I have to say, I've been seeing people zipping around on these electric bikes, and I'm kind of like, that. I think that looks like kind of like it's fun. They get up to almost. I think it's like,
until you fall.
Well, then
true. It's not fun.
That's true. That is true.
No, I mean, I would, if I were in the city, I would probably take one of those bikes instead of the subway or the bus. I've done that And I am so over sitting beside sweaty people. I am just not doing that anymore. I got my license all because of it. So I was like, I am not sitting beside those people anymore. I don't know where you get your deodorant. I just don't know. But in 85-degree heat, I am not on the bus with you. And that is just that's my stance. Yeah. I will drive my gas car. And I think we've got till 2029 for me to buy my last gas car. And then, yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of the mind that, whatever I get as my last, like, by the time they ban the gas cars, I will already have what I want, and I will be dead before I have to buy an electric one. So I'll just keep my little clunker going.
And, I mean, I would like the opportunity. So if you ever have Elon Musk, kind of, stock your program, I have delivered to him an arm from Canada. And yes, I definitely want to try driving his semi truck because it's the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
I think they're
sitting
ugly.
In the middle of a truck.
God.
Oh, I don't like it.
I know.
But I'm just like, I would like the opportunity to try his semi truck. You sit in the middle like it's the Starship Enterprise, and you've got no mirrors. So I'm just knocking people off the road intentionally. Maybe.
Oh my! I think Pierre.
Wait, I didn't say that out loud.
Well, that is a great shot
I was joking on something.
That's a great shot of Pierre flipping his pancake.
Yes.
That's a nice flip there, Pierre.
He makes pancakes at home. That's a guy who makes pancakes at home. My husband can do that. So yeah, he makes pancakes at home.
And he looks more cowboy-like to me. He looks like the real deal there. He's got his belt buckle and the plaid shirt and the hat and the whole thing, man. And he's flipping.
Well, I love Stephen Harper. I loved him.
Yeah.
Absolutely adored him.
Yeah.
He had asthma. He was run to the hospital. I thought, he's just normal, right?
Yeah.
Took his son to play hockey, drank Tim Hortons coffee. He just seemed normal. He didn't seem like this big, important dude, right? Although he was, but he just seemed like somebody you could walk up and go, "Hi, aren't you Stephen Harper?" And he'd go, "Yeah."
The thing about Harper is, as much as he seemed like an everyman, kind of a politician, he really is very bright, very well educated, a lot of depth of knowledge of history, politics, economics. He's a very smart guy. Yeah, Harper. But did you ever see him flip a pancake though? I don't know if he was any good at that.
I don't know if he ever did. Look it up.
He probably did.
You got the machine. Harper flipping pancakes.
We have the technology. All right, let's see what we can find on Stephen Harper, former prime minister.
Ask AI.
Yeah, there you go.
I have actually learned to use AI quite a bit, thanks to BJ, because I kept telling him, "Oh no, I don't like that thing." And he kept telling me, "You gotta try it." And it's doing work for me while I'm driving. It's amazing.
Let's see here. Let's find a picture of Stephen Harper flipping pancakes.
Oh, no. And wait, I shamelessly showed you Leach's book. So can I do a shameless plug for BJ?
Yeah.
If you want the best book written to date, because mine isn't out yet. Go and get Honking for Freedom. BJ does a wonderful job.
Is that what his book is called? Honking for Freedom?
Yes. Honking for Freedom.
Oh,
wait.
You're going to love this one. Here, I got a picture.
I'm sure I have it.
Wait till I show you this picture of Trudeau flipping a pancake. You're going to flip out. I didn't know.
Wait.
Someone said that.
Here you go, Honking for Freedom. You can't see it.
So, yeah, the focus is all out of here. Look at what happened to
there we go.
Okay.
Best book to date.
Honking. That's the BJ Dictor.
That's BJ Dictor's book.
Work, okay. And just so people know, BJ Dictor, also part of the Freedom Convoy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And him and I didn't know each other during the convoy, really. But we met after.
I've never spoken to him. I've never met him. Never talked to him.
He's a really nice guy.
Look at this.
That's Trudeau.
That's him flipping his
Splat.
pancake.
Splat. Do we find Harper?
Not yet. I put in Harper. I got Trudeau, but that was worth it because he sucks. Look at that.
Yeah, but Carney dropped it on the ground like ain't
that's
nobody
true.
eating that.
Look at that. That goes splat. That's terrible. Terrible technique there. Bad form, Justin. See, I don't know if AI is even old enough to remember Stephen Harper.
That's true.
Yeah. Come on. Danielle Smith.
She does a wicked job. Look at that.
There we go.
I'd hire her.
Yeah,
we had no callers, really, Rick?
Yeah, I know. Hard
Seriously?
to believe, right? I guess they're all afraid of us.
Like,
what's wrong
nobody
with you
wants
guys?
to, like, right? They're all being complaining, and then they're like, yeah, no, we're going to just leave them be.
Weird.
I was for sure we were going to get attacked tonight.
Well, I didn't promo it at the beginning saying we're going to go to the phones, but we didn't do that last night either. We just went mid-program, and we still got a bunch of people. Somebody will call in. Somebody will rescue us. 1-647-734-4220. How can we have a call-in show without any callers? Don't you guys want your right to free speech?
Come on, we're waiting to talk to you.
This is your big opportunity for fame, but not fortune.
No, there's none of that.
What's going on in the chat? Anybody saying anything of note in the chat? Someone likes Carney a lot, says Stargrazer. I guess that's because I was running pictures of Carney. What's Dragon doing in there? He says, yeah, you see blue, probably flying blue waffles. Oh, whatever that means.
Oh, no, my daughter explained that to me in her teens, and I was like, there's what? No, don't even look it up.
Okay.
Don't even, like, especially not on the show. Don't look that up.
That's bad.
I promise you, that's not. Just don't call me later.
Mike Damore, who hates me, I think, says, why would anybody call in? Seriously, I think Rick is really out of touch. Okay.
Oh, again? Are you out of touch again? You were like in touch, then you were out of touch, then you were like Superman. Yeah. I mean, really, these people are fickle.
Well,
but yet he's watching you.
Well, as long as they watch.
Right. You had 21K when 21,000, something like that. When I checked it last night, I was like, wow, you're doing great.
Well, I don't know if we've got a friend or a foe on the line, but hopefully it goes well.
We'll find out.
Who's on the line with us now? Go ahead.
Hi, Rick. It's Brian Howell from Kingston.
Brian, sir, how are you tonight?
Okay, I'm doing pretty good. Enjoying the interview tonight with Miss Belton.
Yeah,
very good.
Brigitte, please.
Okay, Brigitte. It's a lot better interview than the interview with Bauder last night.
Thank you.
Politically, I can't understand why he's aligned himself with MAGA and blaming liberals and Democrats and for all the problems that are happening in Canada, United States. He doesn't seem to realize that a couple of Democrats were gunned down in Minnesota a couple of weeks. I just don't understand his exile to Texas.
It's
political move.
Seems like a Quisling.
Self-exile. Be clear.
Self-exile.
Yeah.
It's a political move, and it's to make the U.S. more aware of what he believes happens in Canada. I mean, do we have problems? Yes, we of course we do. Both countries do. And I mean, but that wasn't our goal at Convoy, was to deal with Western separatist issues. The Convoy was there for the mandates to get the working class back to work, or to get us some sort of relief, because financial poverty and destruction was not plausible. It was not acceptable. Segregation and discrimination have been banned long ago. And I mean, honestly, if it takes us 40 years, like in 1944 for the Japanese Canadians, it took them 40 years to get repatriation. That's what it's going to take. But somebody eventually is going to go to the parliament and say what we did to these people was wrong. And unfortunately, we're going to have to wait our time. But we got to keep speaking about it in a positive manner.
Your part of the convoy was pure and honest and with good intentions, with mandates. It seems like Bauder went there with his memorandum of understanding. He wanted to overthrow Parliament. That was never going to happen.
Well, no, but you can't tell those people that, and I mean, did I get caught up in the moments? Sure, I did. I'm not perfect. But I think I was pretty even keeled most of the time through Convoy, and I tried to keep the conflict to a minimum during the convoy because we didn't need that. But afterwards, I said, look, all this stuff needs to be corrected. All you have to do is correct it, and I'm quiet. I mean, it's really not hard. That's
Brigitte,
all that had to be done.
It's Sharon calling from Manitoba, Brigitte. I just want to just say that I really appreciate your approach. It was a smarter approach. It was a more reasoned, common sense, logical approach for the Canadian truckers to put pressure on our government at the borders. And I had no idea that you were sabotaged in such a way and deceived in a way, or not in a way, you were deceived as opposed to being misled. And I just appreciate I appreciate you being on the program and explaining what had happened. I was indicating in the chat, Rick, that varied arguments and differences of opinion are important, and also too, truth is important. And I believe you. I believe you, Brigitte. I believe that.
Thank you.
Your intent was to help and not to hurt anyone. And I just love the sense of Canadians coming together and being united. I don't like the opinions from people who are trying to create more division and discontent. And it's useless. It's not of any value. It does not help in any way. And I appreciate you speaking tonight.
Thank you so much. And
yeah, no problem.
It's been a long fight. It's been 3 years of having my name dragged through the mud. Stories made up, no proof, nobody says anything. I know that Barber has made calls into the US and across the country to smear me. It's part of the group. They're a clandestine group made by the lawyers to protect the narrative that Chris is the first truck of Convoy, that apparently I don't exist and I'm irrelevant and blah, 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 blah. So, I mean, it's been a hard go. And I really want to thank those that do take the time to listen and to objectively think of the information that I'm presenting. And not I don't want anybody to have to choose sides. I really didn't. I never did.
Yeah.
And I didn't ask for this fight. It was brought to me. So I have never ever stood back from a fight though. So I mean that's just who I am, and the truth will eventually come out. It will take a long time,
that's
but
right. That's right.
it's coming. And I really thank anybody that does support me, because I know for you guys, you're either silent because you're afraid of the attacks, or you're taking them with me. So I really, really appreciate all of you.
Well, you know what, Brigitte, I was saying in the chat too, it's not the words that I fear. Words are words. And I know words are powerful. I know lies are powerful. And I know that the more we keep talking and the more we keep discussing and debating, not to tear down or to insult, but the more that, you know, you can speak on platforms like Rick Walker's platform. And I appreciate you, Rick, for hosting different points of view. And it's very helpful for me as a Canadian to listen and to hear, because the more informed I am and the more varied points of view I listen to, I can come to my own decision. And another person in the chat was also pointing out, we're here in North America. We are North Americans. We still value a civil society. We still value democracy. We still invite different points of view, argument, debate, and we can do it without violence.
Right.
So that's what leaps out for me.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I really appreciate you calling. And, you know, Rick and I haven't always been on the same page. He called me with an image with my name all over it, and I was losing it, and I'm calling him and I'm like, I don't know. And he was just like, he listened to me and he goes, but I don't know. This is what they said, and this is how it was vetted. It's been vetted. And I'm like, but it's impossible. And you know, I'm just like, and here I thought Rick was still on my side. And he goes, I am on your side, so let's figure it out. And that's exactly what we did. Rick figures it out, and that's what I like. He doesn't just take my word for it. He goes, well, what proof do you have? What can you show me that what you're saying? Yeah. And I've provided him proof that even some of you haven't seen. But I've been able to show him that, you know, the little girl that started the trucking convoy isn't full of crap. And I really value the fact that he has listened and allowed me to show him what I have. A lot of people have been scared off. Rick has not. I mean, War Campaign was on my side, and then they got legal letters, and, you know, Diverge Media was on my side, and they're still kind of ticking at it, but they got legal letters. You know, anybody that stands up against the out west group seem to get legal letters and, you know, threats of lawsuits. And I'm just like, really?
Well, what insults me as a Canadian is you have someone like James making these accusations or statements about Canadian law and the Canadian government on American soil. That insults me. That tells me that you can't stand up for what you believe here in your own backyard. So if you know, I'm sure there's been many Canadians in the past who took a stance and also took the medicine and wasn't afraid to take the medicine come what may, or where, you know, whatever they were looking to change. And
well,
that's another
there was
thing
this
too,
gentleman,
Bridget,
just give me a second before you move
Sure.
on. There's another gentleman who was so patriotic or what'd you call them? Loyalists. Okay.
Yeah.
You're right. So he believed so much in what he was doing. I believe his name was David Ebb. And he was in jail. He got convicted of whatever, but he was so convinced that he could work for the American people. He ran for office from jail. That's conviction. He didn't run to another country. From jail, he ran for the people. Right?
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to have interrupted. Go ahead.
That's the perfect word. That's the perfect word, Bridget. Conviction. Mm-hmm. Conviction. And I think in the past too, Rick, what I've noted from you in the past was, yes, there are problems, but let us try to build toward a solution. Mm-hmm. Let us try toward building unity as opposed to building walls. So from a recent show that you had, I really liked what the Dukes of Hazzard person actor that was talking about the society between black, white, whomever. But it was just a lovely way. He had such a genteel, but yet, and
Cooter Jones.
Cooter Jones.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to call in and just let you know that, Bridget, and I'll get off the phone. But thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for calling.
Yeah, and before you leave, just something to take note of. Even though we're kind of going through very challenging times, I mentioned the rebellions of 1837 and 1838, and those were basically rebels who were at that time advocating for really Canada to become, before Confederation, assimilated by the U.S. side. But those rebellions led to Lord Durham coming here. What was his name? George Lambton, I believe. He was tasked with the responsibility of producing a report that went back to Parliament in Britain, and his report, because of the rebellions, actually led to Confederation. So even though there was that whole time of turmoil, and many people died in those rebellions, hundreds of people, because of that, we actually ended up with Canada. So the rebels, their actions actually gave us Canada. So I'm still optimistic. If that can be the result of a very negative thing at the time, that was, I think, in many respects, Canada's version of a civil war, as close as we came. And I'm hopeful.
Oh, good.
For what that's worth.
Oh, don't forget the War of 1812, Rick.
Oh, well, that's exactly it. These patriots and these pro-Americans keep saying, this is Canada's 1776 moment. No, it's not. This is our 1812 moment again. This is where people can make those decisions. This is being rekindled. Go ahead, Brigitte.
Didn't Trump just mention that 1776 or something?
Matt,
I pretty
Rick,
much saw that.
Rick, you were saying that. Can you repeat that about 1812? Because that's critical right now in our country.
The pro-Americans, the people are calling for Canada 51. They keep saying this is Canada's 1776 moment. In fact, even today, Ezra Levant doing a very pro-American soliloquy on his program. I just happened to catch it because I know where his mindset is, okay? But no, this is not Canada's 1776 moment. This is an 1812 moment, the War of 1812, where we get to decide what side we're on. Are we patriots, being U.S. patriots, basically traitors to Canada because you want to join the U.S., or will this be a reckoning for Canada? Will the loyalists prevail? Will this? And when I say loyalists, I mean loyal to Canada. This is what it is. It's not 1776. It's 1812, kind of rhyming again, right? It's not being completely revisited, but this is history rhyming, and that's what's really in front of us.
And I just kind of felt like saying to some people in the chat, and I'm, they have a right to their opinion on the other side of the border. But as a Canadian, I just felt like saying, like, this isn't your concern.
Right.
This isn't Canada. So you focus on what you need to do in your country, and we'll take care of what we need to do in our country. Thank you very much. I almost felt like, hey, I felt like I was being pushed around, and I thought, no, it's, we can have this discussion, but can you do it more respectfully? I'm not trying to besmirch, your president and try to tell your president how to run your country. So thank you very much. But we've got this. We're good here. So back off a little bit. That's how I felt.
Could you imagine what would happen if a Canadian military officer started making phone calls to organizers of, say, a BLM protest in Los Angeles?
Like they tell you to go take a flying.
Right.
And then that became
absolutely
public. And could you imagine what Trump would say and do if he found out that Canadian military officers were directing or advising protesters on the streets of any major U.S. city?
We'd be invaded. We'd be invaded
like that.
Yeah. I know, and it's crazy to think that. Yeah.
So good. And it's good. I'm you know what? I'm just going to say one last thing. I appreciate you have Americans come on your show, Rick, and I'm thankful for what I read tonight in the chat. That made me realize, like, hey, hey, is this the prevailing attitude in amongst the American people, that they can just you can do or say whatever you like. You can invite not invite, but have American generals and American politicians start dictating what we do here in Canada.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's not supposed to work
Thank
that
you.
way, but yeah.
Did you
True
celebrate
trucking.
Have a good one.
Independence Day, Sharon?
Pardon me?
Did you celebrate Independence Day?
Well, I do acknowledge it, but as far as celebrating it, no. But I don't go out of my way to make another barbecue. But I do acknowledge that, yeah, this is the American people have certainly a unique government that is free, that invites freedom of thought and action. And thank you, but you can. I'll admire. I will admire you from afar.
Yes.
When it's funny, because my American friends say that, let's say the 51st state happened, they said, regardless, you're not Americans. You are not
Exactly.
Americans. And they said we couldn't take the A's and the I'm sorry's from you people. That is not American. It's get out of my way and right? So my friends are making fun of it, but they're definitely like, you're not American. You will never be American. Even if we invaded you and took Canada, it will be Canada the North, not
There you go.
Americans. So they don't want us either. And I have a lot of military friends that they, of course, the US is very big in military. So they're all Marines or ex-Marines and truck drivers. And they're like, we don't want you, go home. And they definitely are not happy that a Canadian is seeking refuge in the US.
Yeah.
They are not happy. They are like, that is a coward and he needs to go home. That is exactly how they feel about it. So,
oh yeah.
The political swamp may feel different and they can use it to their advantage, but the American people as a whole don't believe that he should stay. So the American people I've dealt with, I shouldn't say everybody, I should make that very clear. It's my group that believe that.
Well, Brigitte, I think it's very clear to a lot of people. I think it's a bit hypocritical to sit there and spout off about the mistakes made, or perhaps the policies that we can improve on, but doing it from a different perspective, or 300 feet away, or 3,000 feet, or 3,000 miles, or 300,000 miles away.
1,500.
Like, yeah,
it's 1,500. And depending on where, it could be up to 16, maybe 18, but it's 1,500 to at least Houston.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean,
Anyway.
here, and how is he fighting for Canadians' freedom from Texas? How are you fighting? And that is in the documents that he released. I'm fighting for all of Canada, for their freedoms in Texas. Like, I just don't get it. And that's, I mean, you have to laugh at the situation, because otherwise you just pull your hair out and go, it's not computing. It just does not compute.
Yeah.
Well, maybe he's writing his memoirs too.
Oh, and he should. I totally look forward to laughing while I read them, but I'm just sorry. That was horrible. I apologize, James. I look forward to reading them. I have read every book, so.
Yes. The toilet paper has arrived.
Well, there's a few of them that are like that, but anyway.
Well, I really appreciate you calling in tonight, and I
appreciate the show.
Yeah. Well, great contribution to the conversation, and I wish other people would call in at 1-647-734-4220 tonight.
Let's have a conversation.
Well, Rick, I'm going to leave space for someone who wants to call in, who may have a different point of view, and I think that's wonderful. So you guys have a great night, and thank you so much.
Okay,
thank you for calling.
Yeah.
Good night.
Yeah.
Good night.
Good night.
I can't wait for someone to call in and so I can kick them off.
Wait, that was me last night.
Yes, that's true. You did kind of get pushed aside, but
I
that's,
booted myself.
that's why I wanted to bring you back tonight, because I thought we're going to give you a voice again. That's only fair. All right. Let's take a little break here, folks. I'm going to put that phone number up on the screen. Here's how you can call in and join the conversation. Okay, Mavericks, it's call-in time. Join the conversation. Call 1-647-734-4220. Then enter the PIN number 860-075-764, followed by the pound sign. Exercise your right to free speech. Call 1-647-734-4220. Then enter the PIN number 860-075-764, followed by the pound sign. Call 1-647-734-4220. Then enter the PIN number 860-075-764, followed by the pound sign. Maverick News. Call now. The world is watching and listening to you.
What's your Mac?
Okay. Bridget's making her way back to the camera, and I can hear her talking to her best friend, her dog. On there she is, emerging from the background, and
I'm here.
Coming down to turn 4 down the straightaway and back to the finish line. Yeah, you're still there, Brian. I'm glad you stuck around.
Yeah,
We
I
need your
am.
help.
I'm still here. I was busy yesterday protesting in my solidarity with the big anti-Trump thing yesterday. And there's a big another demo coming up on the 17th.
Yep.
So
What did they
I've
call
got
that?
to update my protest signs.
What was that called yesterday?
Free America. Things are moving so fast. You don't even know who's organizing it.
Well, yeah.
Hands off, no kings. Basically, I think it was the Women's March movement.
Go ahead. What do you mean, Bridget? Be careful. What do you mean?
Be careful, because some of these organizers, they do it for a living. Just be careful. Just be careful. Yeah, just be careful. I didn't know a lot. I know a whole lot more now. So yeah, I had no idea you needed a permit to protest. Did you know you needed a permit? I had no idea. I was like, why would I tell them I'm coming? Like, why would I do that? Yeah. Apparently you need to. Okay. Yeah.
Circumstances.
I mean, that is definitely where James was, helpful, but his permit was not valid, so Chris Guerra had to get one.
Yeah.
That's the story among the leadership.
Well, Brian, I guess the real takeaway from these protests is that it shows how divided America is right now. It's like really, really deeply divided.
Yeah, and
I'm just glad cherries are
they're
cheap.
mega states like Texas and Florida. It's just alligator Auschwitz, or whatever they're calling it.
Yeah.
Well, Trump actually wanted to build a moat during his first term from Laredo, Texas to San Diego. An honest to goodness moat, and stock it with snakes and alligators and creepy crawlers. Really.
Okay, you guys got to start.
But now he's got his wish in Florida.
It is bizarro time, isn't it? Yeah.
Maybe they need to start electing somebody younger.
You know what? I'm afraid to go back and look at some of the programs I produced a long time ago, or even go back and think about where my head space was at in, say, 2016, 2017, right around the time, because I was very pro-Trump in many ways. But like, was it him or was it me? Was it me being blind, or was he? I think he was different back then. I think something has gone with the whole MAGA Trump thing. Like, it's gone way too far.
I
Something
just,
changed.
I really, I'm getting text messages from him all the time because I signed up for the little Trump thing.
Okay.
And I was behind him again for 2025.
Yeah.
But I also liked Obama at the one point, so don't judge. But he seemed very charismatic, and he still seems very charismatic. But I don't know. I don't know what happened to the guy who was firm but fair and understood how business is done. He doesn't, I mean, has he kind of kicked Carney down a little bit? I think so. I mean, Carney says, no, we're not putting your stuff here. We've got tariffs on you. And then Trump goes, really? And he goes, oh, no, it's okay, Mr. Trump. We've got this. You go ahead and tariff us and we'll release the tariffs. Or Trump goes, what was the latest one? Some sort of annex, digital annex.
The
And he was
DST,
like,
the Digital Services Tax.
yeah. And this is something that they pay to the UK, which Carney's friends with. And he goes to put it and apply it against the US, and the US takes a fit, and he's like, oh, okay, well, maybe we'll just back off. Like, no. Like, what happened to elbows up? Like, what happened to that? Is it kind of elbows up if I'm getting elected? And then after that, it's just like, we're going to cave. Like,
I kind of had
I don't know.
on it. But the way I viewed it is that's optics. Trump comes out and says, that's it. We're cutting off all negotiations because of the DST and because of the tariffs on dairy. Well, neither one of those things was new. If it was really legitimately a big thing, unless he's like completely clued out and just somebody told him he needs to do this. But really, like the DST was brought in under Trudeau over a year ago. So it was already there. Then he comes out and says this. And then within, was it 2 days, right on the deadline for the DST taking effect, Carney drops it. But see, my take is, I don't think Carney cared that much about the DST. That was a Trudeau thing. And
right.
And when Trump was saying, that's it, we're cutting off negotiations, that was part of the negotiations. The negotiations never actually stopped. And then because of, you can see how rapidly things came back online, it's because the negotiations were going on through the back channels the whole time. And so what he did is he's like, okay, we'll take it off. And then that gives Trump this big public win that he needs to appease Trump, because you got to stroke the guy to make him feel like he's important. So he's got to play in the game. It's like, okay, we'll give him this. You give him the public win so he can go, look what we did. I'm number one. And then he says it's part of a broader negotiation, which is true. So then we'll see what we get on the other side.
But what's Carney's win?
Well, that's what's going on in the background, right? That's what's in the background. And the reality is they need us a lot more than he's letting on. They really.
Oh, well, I happen to carry one product that if the US doesn't buy, they will have garbage all over the place. So we have hosing that we make that is patented, that is specifically meant to separate the water and methane gas from the waste management sites. We're the only ones that give it to them. Only ones.
Yeah.
So without that, what happens? The methane gas builds up underneath the ground and their garbage goes spewing across the US. So go ahead.
Yeah, so
we'll just terrace the crap out of that.
Yeah, our economies are so intertwined. And they do need us. It's not just because, see, we are smaller, but we're valuable, and we're not alone. We're not alone. We're dealing with Europe. He's got to deal with Mexico. He's picked a fight with every country in the world. He has no friends. He has no place he can turn to say, well, if we're not going to get it from you, then we're going to get it from this guy over here for less. He's tariffing everybody. So no, I think it's just a lot of it is optics. Just sit back, let it just unfold. This is not all what you're seeing on the surface is not the true reality of what's going on behind the scenes. We don't know. Give it a little time.
I do have to thank the elbows up people because we can now get cherries for $1.99 a pound. So, you know, they don't want to buy American. I will happily go in and buy the products they don't want at a reduced price. So thank you for all those elbows up people, because now you just made my life more affordable.
Do you ever watch David Frum?
Who?
He's a political commentator. Used to be a speechwriter for President Bush.
Rick, I like you, and I barely get to watch you because I work 70 hours a week.
I think he's brilliant, and he said the other day that you know we need to understand that we can't just keep appeasing Trump. At some point, you have to hit him back because that's what he respects. And I was so glad to see Trudeau go because he didn't choose his words carefully enough. He wasn't diplomatic enough. He pissed Trump off too many times. Trump hated him. We were doomed if Trudeau was there. So I don't care who else is there, whether it's Carney or Poilievre, but somebody else had to get in there. And I'm again optimistic because when you look at the way that Trump deals with Carney, it's much different than Trudeau. There is some respect, at least. So we're on a much better footing, and I think we're going to come out of this okay. I'm optimistic.
Yeah, I didn't like Trudeau, especially after he called me names and he'd never even met me.
Just, the guy. Just
Brigitte, what did you long term? What did you spiritually take out of the Freedom Convoy? You know, after Ottawa ended.
That I'm a lot stronger than I think. I mean, it's honestly, if I'm looking spiritually, the fact that I could endure a coordinated attack against me personally, and survive it for 3 years when my thought process in November of 21 was to take my life because I couldn't deal with the mandates.
Did you get the job?
I didn't. I did not. And
did I?
And I suffered through that while I was being attacked by the people I went to Ottawa with, while I was trying to keep my husband's truck from going back to the bank, while Chris laughed and said, "Don't worry about it. It'll only take 3 months." So, you know, I've dealt a lot with these people, and they may not remember the things they said in the little cuts, but they're there and they're never going away. And, you know, James said, you know, everybody's back to normal and back to life. No, I am still affected today by the crap I went through before Convoy. And now I'm affected by Convoy. So the load for me has never lightened, and the constant fight to get the truth out and to lighten the load has never decreased for me, because I still live with coming northbound. I still have issues, lack of sleep, irritability, eye twitching. It's just what happened because of the hard stance that the border took against me. So that's still there. It hasn't gone.
It's almost
not
like you're
gone.
describing a post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the convoy was an inspiration to me, and I went there. I was on Wellington Street. You know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Convoy for me was like it was for many other people. You know, they said, you saved my life. And I'm like, no, you guys saved mine. You just don't understand. You guys saved mine, because I was the one planning my funeral the night I parked. I was literally planning my funeral. And they wouldn't allow me to change my beneficiaries online. I think that fail safe we have in Canada that you couldn't do those things online, they actually help prolong the fact that I was here a little bit longer, right? So Canada's not all evil. There are some good things, and we have better banking systems. And although our healthcare is lacking in availability, the service when you get it is good, right? And you don't go bankrupt and lose your house because you're sick. That is amazing. I know several people who have lost their homes in the US, even as visitors to the US, because of a medical. My husband has almost $1,000 a month. I can't afford to be American.
Yeah. It's a lot to consider. You know, there's lower taxes, and then there's just looking at the big picture.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's you can't just look at one aspect. I mean, the housing, we're lucky, Rick, being here in southwestern Ontario, our tax burden for homes is not that bad. It's very comparable to the US. I've owned 2 homes in the US, and my taxes are very comparable to the one stateside. If your taxes aren't, move out of the city centers. Look for where the taxes are less. Um, you can't be in the GTA in downtown Toronto where land is limited and complain you're paying $6,000. That's on you. You need to move out. You know, if you can't afford it, you need to move out. That's just the way it is.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And I've always been a lower tax, just less government kind of guy, but not to the point where like, I'm a sovereign citizen. You're not the boss of me. I'm not showing you my ID. No, I'm not that.
Right.
I'm just like a little less government, a little bit lower taxes, give me a little more control over my destiny. Right. But still, I want my government to provide essential services. I want safe streets. I want good policing. And I don't really mind paying a little higher taxes to give somebody a hand up too. That's what being Canadian.
A hand up.
A hand up.
Not a handout.
Right. That's right.
I don't want to give handouts anymore.
Yeah.
The welfare system has been long overused and abused.
Yep.
We have generational welfare that needs to stop.
Yeah.
If you are able-bodied, we don't need to bring somebody from Mexico or Jamaica. We're going to put you on a list, go see your worker, and that's your job today. If you want to get your welfare check, there's nothing wrong with you. You're A-okay. You can bend up. You can stand up. You need a job. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So that is where I get frustrated with government is they bring people in to do jobs Canadians can do. And then those migrant workers are ungrateful and don't want to pay the tax on their earnings. And it's like, but you were here as a privilege. It's not your right to work here. So if you don't like it, don't come back.
Yeah. Well, that kind of gets us near the bottom of the hour. And I'm going to first throw it over to Brian for a final thought. And then we'll go to Brigitte to kind of wrap things up tonight. What are you thinking there, Brian? Help us out.
Well, I'm going to have to update my protest sign. Things are moving so fast in the States that it's a sign of Trump's warp speed and what he's doing. That my protest sign is 2 months old. It's already outdated. But I'll be out on the street here in Kingston, July 17th. Just another hands off, no kings, free America, women's march demo. And they're being held in some of the major cities in Canada: Montreal, Toronto, Calgary, Vancouver, probably. But
all right. Well, I know you were practicing burning an American flag.
Yeah.
So I'm not really into that myself, but you're all practiced up, are you? Are you gonna go full tilt and do the real deed with a full size flag?
Sure.
Okay.
Oh no.
I'm not. I can't say I'm real happy about it. I don't advocate for it, but I did see the image you sent to me the other day of you burning an American flag. It was just a little paper one, wasn't it?
Yeah, a little homemade jobby.
Okay, it was just a little flag,
trial
Donald.
run.
It was, Actually, I think he's passing a law. I don't know if he has yet. He said that he was going to pass a law that if you burn an American flag, you're going to jail. So better be careful there, Brian.
Yeah.
Just letting you know.
Yeah.
Okay. Now on the Canadian flag,
Anyway.
we're pretty tolerant. I don't know.
I was pretty upset when they did it at
the Canadian flag.
Convoy. Yeah.
What's that?
I was pretty upset when they did that at Convoy. I was really, really upset with the group that did that. And that should have never happened. You don't burn the Canadian flag. You don't burn the American flag.
Yeah,
These are country flags. There are people that have died in order to preserve those flags and the freedoms of those countries.
Yep.
Let's not disrespect those that lost their lives so that we could be here and talk the way we do today.
Yeah, and I think it's not so much America that I'm upset with. I'm not. I'm just some of these policies that Trump is bringing in and the way people are being treated and the end run around people's rights and freedoms again, which is what we've experienced here in Canada. And we're seeing people's rights being trampled in the US as well right now. And that's what I take exception to. That's what needs to be fixed on both sides of the border, as far as I'm concerned.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. If we all got rid of the government tomorrow, we're not getting rid of the government, just a hypothetical thing. If the government didn't exist by some weird chance tomorrow, what would we do? What would we complain about? Really? We got to complain about something, so we choose the people we put in power to complain about them. I mean, we don't have to like everything, but we need to find the positives and start looking towards those. Boost the positives, fix the negatives.
Just what makes that little old ant think he can move that rubber tree plant?
Well, she moved a truck to Ottawa, or tried to.
And she's got high hopes.
Right?
Guys, thank you everybody for joining us here and hanging out for as long as you have. 3.5 hours marathon session with the mother of the convoy, Brigitte Belton. Thank you, Brigitte. I'll see everybody.
Thank you,
Bridget.
everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Brian.
Muchas gracias, Rick.
Thank you, Mavericks. See everybody back here tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern on the
Flip side.
Didn't pick this fight, but here it came. Now I wanna play in a traitor's game. They sell us out for a tax cut deal. Shake his hand while they rob and steal. They call us blind, they call us weak, but they're the ones on their knees to the thief. Wave our flag while they burn it down, marching to the sound of a tyrant's crown. They ain't patriots, they're bought and sold. Trade our land for American gold. Singing his tune, dancing his way, but they'll cry for Canada when it's too late. Yeah. Trump traitors, selling us out, burning our home for a tax break now. They stand with the wolves, spit on the brave, but they'll beg for Canada when it's in its grave. They talk real tough, but they bow real low, licking his boots while they put on a show. They chant his name, raise their fists up high, while the real ones fight to keep us alive. They don't fight fair, they twist the truth, say they're the future, but they kill the roots. They laugh now, but watch them run when the north wind howls and justice comes. Traitors, selling us out, burning our home for a tax break now. They stand with the wolves, spit on the brave, but they'll beg for Canada when it's in its grave. soon the tide will turn, and traitors pay when the fires burn. No statues raised, no banners flown, just names in dust where the traitors roam. Selling us out, burning our home for a tax break. Now they stand with the wolves, spit on the brave, but they'll beg for Canada when it's in its grave. Trump traitors, Trump traitors, Trump traitors. Trump traitors! Trump traitors! Shame.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.